The story kicks off with Gil as the main guy. Faw's Eldragon thought he was at the top of his game, convinced he'd mastered every martial arts move out there. He always had this feeling that no matter how hard he pushed himself, there was this next level he just couldn't get to. It was like the top was out there, but not for him. He slumped down against the freezing stone wall, totally wiped out and beat up from all those fights. His hands shook, but you could tell he wasn't giving up. There was still that fire in his eyes. Even when everything hurt, he was locked in, ready to go after what he wanted, no matter how tough it got. Stories from way back always talked about this legendary place. Everyone knew it was supposed to be a hidden spot protected by a dragon with some rare golden fruit growing inside. People said this fruit could make someone live forever if they ate it. After grinding for years and pushing through non-stop challenges, Gilfaz finally made it to the legendary tree. Right there in front of him was the golden fruit. The thing straight up glowed, almost blinding. He just stared, totally locked in, his chest buzzing with excitement. He spots the dragon fruit for real and just mutters to himself, kind of in disbelief. Out of nowhere, the sky lit up with this insane roar. It was the divine dragon making an entrance. The guardian of the fruit dropped down, totally fired up. After that, an insane fight broke out, like the whole sky was about to split open. Gilfaz came out on top, barely hanging on, his sword covered in the divine beast's blood. He actually beat it. He spotted the dragon and literally froze for a second. Grabbing the fruit, he realized this could finally take him to the next level. He finally made it to the top, where only the best fighters ever get. Not wasting a second, he grabbed the golden fruit, his eyes lighting up with that wild, hungry energy guys get when they're all in. All he had to do was eat it, and things would never be the same. Back in the day, Gilfaz Eldragon used to be the top martial artist in the world. Years passed and everything changed. His body, which used to be strong, now looked weak and worn out. Gilfaz lay on his bed with his family all around him. He gave a weak smile, looking like he knew what was coming. In that quiet moment, he said it wouldn't be long now. His oldest son was right there with him. He dropped his head, eyes starting to tear up. He just wanted his dad to chill and not overdo it. Gilfaz just laughed, not really bothered. He didn't want anyone to see him looking weak. For him, it just felt like his moment was up, nothing more. His son tried to convince his dad not to leave, worried that the eastern state would fall apart without both parents around. Gilfaz glanced out the window, finally giving in to what his son was saying. Turns out the whole immortality fruit thing was just a story. But honestly, he felt like getting another shot at life was already a huge win. He had a wife and kids. He put his hand on his grandson's head, real gentle. In that moment, he just thought about how much he cared for his family and everything he'd been through. He lived a good, long life. He shut the door behind him. He looked super calm, a quiet smile on his face, like he was honestly content with how everything turned out. Deep down, he couldn't believe it for a second. He knew he definitely had. He wished he could go back, thinking about all the stuff he should have done. If he just had a little more time, things might have turned out different. He still wants to reach the very top no matter what. He focused on his martial arts, taking a slow breath. Meanwhile, his son started crying out behind him. His dad stood there. And just like that, everything changed. Great Gilfaz Eldragon should have been done for. Everyone thought that was his last breath. Gilfaz snapped awake, not really sure what just happened. For a second, he wondered if he'd just passed out or something. He looked around and noticed the walls were super thin, almost like they were made out of paper. His whole body felt weird, almost like he was barely there. When he glanced down, his hands looked small and soft, way more delicate than he remembered. He stared at his hands, confused. They looked tiny, like a baby's. That's when it finally clicked for him. He suddenly got hit with the truth, eyes going wide. Seriously? Did he just get reborn? He paused for a second, trying to chill himself out. Okay, he told himself, time to get focused. Gilfaz just sat there, trying to figure out how things even got to this point. He suddenly remembered the golden fruit, and for a second, it was all he could think about. Something kept running through his head. Was it all because he finally got to do whatever he wanted? He spotted the fruit, and just like that, he lit up with excitement. Turns out, the fruit wasn't about living forever. Instead, it basically hit reset and gave people another shot at life. He couldn't help but smile, his young face lighting up. It felt unreal, like he'd just scored the biggest win. Finally, he was about to level up and hit the top in martial arts. He turned his tiny head and spotted a bunch of other babies around him. Seeing all of them there, it clicked. This had to be a nursery. He paused for a second, trying to process it all. Right away, his instincts kicked in, sizing up everything around him. Being in a different part of the manor could only mean one thing. He'd landed back with the Eldragon family. Gilfaz looked around, taking in the room full of soft whimpers and little shuffles. He looked around and noticed way too many babies in one place. Right after that, something unexpected happened. A group of maids walked in, each holding a tray stacked with bottles full of bright red stuff that looked like it came straight out of a video game. Their smiles looked chill, but something about the whole setup had him on edge. He watched them closely, eyes narrowing as he tried to catch every detail. The maids started handing out food to each kid, taking their time with each one, but then something unexpected happened. Gilfaz just stopped in his tracks. Right there with all the babies, he spotted this tiny goblin green skin, blank eyes, looking totally out of place. He couldn't wrap his head around it. Seriously, what was a goblin doing here? He spotted that nasty creature hanging around and started wondering what it was up to. But before he could even process it, the goblin started twitching all over out of nowhere. The little thing squirmed, clearly hurting, its eyes flipping back, and then, just like that, it stopped moving. Gilfuz's heart was going wild. Someone just dropped dead out of nowhere. Meanwhile, one of the maids acted like nothing big had happened, just letting out a deep sigh and carrying on. She figured it would probably work out if they just watered it down a bit more. Her voice was icy, like she didn't care at all. She told him to just hand it off to someone else. Gilfaz's eyes got big. He couldn't believe what he just heard. Then, another maid walked up to him holding something. He spotted a small bottle filled with that same red liquid. Seriously? It looked like they wanted him to drink it again. He tried to fight back, but his body just wasn't having it. The maid carefully lifted his head. As soon as the liquid hit his tongue, he could feel energy rushing through him, like his whole body just powered up. He instantly realized this wasn't just milk. The stuff was packed with some wild magic, way stronger than anything he'd ever felt. His hand started to shake, and he almost blacked out right there. The craziest part, they were actually giving this to babies. Out of nowhere, he caught on to something weird. The vibe in the air wasn't normal. He could tell right away. His eyes went wide as it clicked for him. This was angel blood. He was staring at an ancient dragon, and honestly, his brain was lagging. Was this even real? He couldn't believe what was going on. Seriously, what was running through their heads? Things just kept getting worse, and the pain ramped up. His whole body started shaking like he couldn't control it. In his head, he was freaking out, just hoping he could get it out before things got worse. But out of nowhere, another thought hit him. The energy was unreal. He could actually feel it. Something wild was going on inside him. His whole body felt out of control, but in a way that almost felt unreal, like something bigger was happening. He thought that if he could take this in, he might actually outdo what he'd done before. Even though he was hurting bad, this wild grin just showed up on his young face. Guess this is how fate does its thing, he thought. He locked in, thinking hard. If the gods were handing out power, he wasn't about to pass it up. He pulled together every bit of strength he had. Gilfaz focused up and started moving his energy around, using that classic move every martial arts pro knows by heart. His whole body started shaking hard, veins lighting up with this soft gold glow while the dragon's blood really got deep inside him. The pain was next level, like every inch of him was just screaming nonstop. Even with everything stacked against him, he just got more fired up. In his head, he knew people shouldn't sleep on Gilfaz Eldragon. Right then, the legend came back stronger than ever, covered in dragon blood. Right then, the whole room started shaking because Gilfaz was glowing with this insane power from the ancient dragon's blood. The maids just stood there, totally stunned. Nobody could believe what just happened. The power coming off this baby was just unreal. Everyone stared, trying to figure out what kind of kid could even do something like that. One guy even leaned over, pretty much wondering how a baby could just soak up all that dragon blood like it was nothing. Gilfaz, even stuck in that tiny newborn body, still had his full mind working. He kind of grinned to himself, thinking about how he was about to soak up all that ancient power. He figured that was the real power behind the dragon. If he pulls this off, he could actually get to the next level. He finally reached a level in martial arts that he never thought he'd hit in his whole life. In his past life, Gilfaz just kept taking all the pain, barely flinching. The maids looked at each other, clearly on edge, quietly hoping things wouldn't get worse. The power going off around him was wild, but he kept his cool. He started thinking, if he could handle all this without freaking out, maybe things would actually turn out for him. Right after, he noticed the others. Even the babies made it through. Somehow, these little ones handled all that chaos and still came out okay. He realized babies are built to survive, and that's no joke. But after a while, he just got wiped out. Seriously, being stuck in a baby's body is tougher than he thought. He drifted off, finally knocked out by sleep. 7 years flew by after that. The sun came up over the Eldragon estate. Inside, there was a quiet courtyard hidden away from everything. Out in the yard, this kid was totally locked in, cranking out one-handed push-ups like it was nothing. Sweat was running down his face as he hit rep 998, not even slowing down. Right after that, he powered up and launched himself off the ground. He launched himself off the ground, flipped backwards in the air, and stuck the landing like it was nothing. Gilfaz Eldragon just turned 7. He checked out his reflection in the pond and couldn't help but smirk. His body looked insane-like, next level. All that ancient dragon blood really paid off. He shut his eyes for a second, thinking back. He still remembered everything from his last life. That power wasn't just his. It's something everyone's got deep down. Turns out, what those old legends said was actually spot on. He thought about how the dragon's blood they drank was packed with some serious power. Even the little kids who just had a sip started acting way different. Some people got just a little of that blood and ended up way stronger than regular folks. But Gilfaz, he took in all of it, every last drop. The ancient dragon had this rare power deep inside him. When he breathed out, red and yellow energy lit up all around, twisting and burning like some kind of holy fire. He could tell something inside him had totally changed. He couldn't believe what was happening. He was honestly impressed, even caught himself off guard. Sitting cross-legged, he zoned out and got deep into his meditation. He noticed his heart had leveled up, forming its first star. By now, he was really locked in. He figured he should have been up to at least 4 by now. In this world, every star showed how much real power someone had stacked up. The more stars someone had, the stronger they got. Back in his old life, Gilfaz Eldragon had reached a 10-star rank, literally the first and only guy ever to pull that off. He opened his eyes and let out a sigh, ready to get going. Time really flies. It's wild to think 7 years have already passed since he got reborn as the secret kid of the Eldragon family boss. His face turned serious. His mom had died years back, and his dad, who was supposed to be the head of the family, never even showed up for him. He couldn't help but think how lame that was, just feeling bitter about how things went down before. He used to run the whole Eldragon family, calling the shots. Now, he was basically invisible to his own people, like he didn't even matter anymore. Staring up at the sky, he just felt left behind. He never imagined waking up 1,000 years in the future. That alone was wild enough to mess with his head. In this world, he tightened his grip, fist balled out. In this world, only the strong make it out on top. Gilfaz could see that just by looking at the dragon trial, he knew deep down that only the dragon babies who made it through the trial got a shot at becoming Eldragon warriors. Nobody ever showed up to train him, which was weird. While he was just spacing out, his personal maid walked in. She didn't say anything, just stared at him. Gilfaz noticed and frowned, thinking he didn't have to explain himself, so he just turned his back. 7 years slipped by, and not once did an instructor stop by to check on him. Back in the day, everyone knew the original owner of his body as GK. But now, around his family, people started calling him a legend. No one really knew, but his true self was actually legendary. But this was Gilfaz Eldragon, the guy everyone used to call the strongest warrior ever. He glanced at the maid, wondering why things felt off. If someone actually passed the dragon trial, shouldn't they be in the middle of some next-level combat training? Instead, the place was empty except for her. The maid just gave a small bow, waiting for what he'd do next. He paused and let out a small sigh. He wasn't really looking for anything. Something about the situation just seemed off to him, but he decided not to stress about it. Getting stronger mattered more to him than fighting skills right now. He shifted in his seat and thought, if nothing else, maybe he could at least get some info on the other kids or whoever was in charge. He asked about his family, but the maid just shot him a cold look and pretty much shut him down, making it clear she couldn't say anything. Gilfuz couldn't hold it together anymore. He'd been trying to keep cool, but he just wanted a straight answer. Her tone stayed exactly the same with her family. He could tell she wasn't pretending or putting on a show for anyone. He didn't really have the right to say anything about that. He tightened his fists, barely holding back. That was it? He didn't even pause to think. She just kept saying she couldn't talk about it. Gilfaz paused, trying to figure out what her deal was. Gilfaz took a deep breath, kind of annoyed, thinking he wasn't being treated right. The maid just kept her cool and let him know they were only supposed to handle his basic stuff. Gilfaz frowned, not loving the answer. He looked at her and remembered she ranked as a 3-star fighter. For regular training, she could totally handle things. Still, he couldn't help noticing he'd been left on his own. He turned his back, looking pretty fed up. Whatever. He decided to just head into the forest. For 7 years, he'd only been taught the absolute basics, nothing more, and honestly, that was sketchy. As he walked off, the maid let out a quiet sigh behind him. He watched as Gilfaz walked away, his figure getting smaller with every step. Gilfaz turned his head just a bit, throwing a quick look back. Now even he was acting like he didn't see him. Seriously? Gilfaz disappeared into the trees. Just a bunch of green. She grabbed some herbs and took a bite, chasing it with a sip of wine. He chewed on the poisonous root again, and yeah, it tasted terrible, just like every other time. He kept his voice low. Still, he knew dealing with that nasty taste was just another part of getting stronger. A few seconds later, he stopped what he was doing. His eyes narrowed as he tried to stay patient. That weird feeling that someone was following him just wouldn't go away. He kept wondering why nobody else seemed to notice or do anything about it. He was seriously starting to get annoyed. He glanced over at the trees, not really expecting anyone to pull up for something this small. Out in the woods, a deep, weird voice just echoed, like someone wasn't holding back anymore and wanted to get straight to the point. Between the trees, purple mist drifted around, looking weird and kind of creepy. Gilfuz's face got serious, like he was ready to handle whatever was coming. He kept his voice low, saying something was on its way. Not long after, he got hit with a wave of pure anger. From out of nowhere, the boar rushed out of the dark, letting loose. Violet energy started pulsing all around. Gilfaz's eyes went wide for a second, not expecting that at all. Back then, nobody had ever seen that black mist. It just wasn't around 1,000 years ago. Now, seeing it, he had no clue what he was looking at. The creature let out a roar that echoed through the place. It stomped hard on the ground with its hooves, like it was ready to charge. Everyone rushed straight at him. Gilfaz just smiled. It was the best time to go hunting and hit his target. Golden light shot out from his fist, swirling around with serious power. He rushed straight at the boar, slamming into it like he wasn't holding back at all. The ground cracked under his feet and the boar just dropped right there. He stared at his hand, which was glowing, and let out a sigh. Even someone like him with only 1 star could cause this much damage with just a light touch. It really showed that the star's level made a big difference. He hoisted the huge creature onto his shoulder, feeling worn out from always being on his own. It started to hit him that maybe he should just pack up and head out for a change. Gilfaz kept it to himself, not sure if he'd actually go anywhere, but the thought was definitely stuck in his head. He figured he'd just get stuck being watched again, but before he could even finish that thought, everything switched up. Somewhere up high, a strange guy was watching everything. He wasn't just anyone, he was the god of observation. His eyes locked onto the youngest kid from the Eldragon family. He wondered what was happening down there. That kid just created a star and took out a wild anger boar like it was nothing. He took someone out in 1 hit even though nobody ever taught him how to fight. Arms crossed, he stared, eyes sharp, totally focused. Plus, he spotted me hiding like he's got some kind of sixth sense. This kid isn't your average dude. The god kept watching, curious. After all, the kid lost his mom early and his dad basically ignores him. There's no shot he ever got a real education. Still, somehow, he's way stronger than anyone would expect. Since he's from the Eldragon family, he can't step outside the estate and is always being watched. A smile showed up on the god's face. He saw the guy with the master's blood and wondered if that was all the dude had going for him. Stuff was starting to get interesting. Then, the god just faded away into mist, almost like he was never there. He started slipping out of reality again. At the same time, Gilfaz glanced around, staying alert because he could tell someone was there. He realized someone had been watching him. He looked around and called out, trying to see who was there. His instincts kicked in right away. Whoever was out there had serious power, like 4 or 5 stars easy. He couldn't figure out why someone like that would bother with him. Still, he kept moving, tracking the quiet voices until he finally got to the end. He found a room close by and leaned in, pressing his ear to the door. Inside, a couple of guys were talking, sounded like they were in charge. One of them mentioned that there weren't any rifts around, so things should stay chill here. They both seemed pretty sure the countryside air was still calm, and it didn't look like they were expecting any trouble. Gilfaz spotted some warriors from the Eldragon army. He noticed they didn't seem ready to fight. There wasn't that usual tension in the air. It didn't look like a setup or anything. Still, he wondered what they were doing there. He made up his mind and stepped inside, pushing the door open. The door was already open, so he just walked in. He wanted to know what they were doing there. Both guys spun around, caught off guard. When they saw who he was, their eyes got huge. They realized right away he was from the Eldragon bloodline. Gilfaz looked back, getting more and more curious. He kept wondering what these guys actually wanted from him. One of the older dudes in the group just wouldn't let up. He pulled himself together fast and gave a quick bow. Meeting the young master was supposed to be a big deal. They were here to pick him up for some kind of test. Gilfaz just stood there for a second, totally caught off guard. Right then, his face switched up. First he looked lost, then it hit him hard. He just kept thinking about that test. The man just gave a chill nod. Gilfaz tightened his fists, annoyed. Nobody had filled him in. He got serious real quick and moved in, clearly not having any of it. The guys looked at each other, both a bit on edge, not sure what was coming next. Nobody really knew what to do next, caught off guard by this fired-up young warrior who just stepped up and threw down a challenge right in their faces. Gilfaz Eldragon pulled up to the huge gates of his family's castle, just standing there for a second and checking out those massive doors. He paused, thinking to himself as he took it all in. He never thought he'd actually come back to the main house after being gone for 17 years. His mind flashed back to that day when an envoy showed up and took him away from everything he knew. That moment still stuck with him no matter how much time passed. Gilfaz headed back to the main family house. A maid walked up, all polite, and let him know he couldn't go in wearing what he was. He looked at her, kind of caught off guard, but just nodded without saying anything. In his head, he was already thinking about the dragon nest and what that might mean. Somewhere in the last 1,000 years, the Eldragon family set up their own thing. He thought back to what school was like for kids in the Eldragon family. Once you hit 7, you had to join the dragon nest. No questions asked. That's when the real lessons started. Today was the big entrance exam. Back in the... Gilfaz showed a small smile. He hadn't really gotten ready for this, but the exam was something he had to do, no matter what. He wondered why he even got pulled out from way back in the day. He let out a sigh and shot me a quick look. He looked down at his beat-up backpack. After all the work he put in getting ready, he just plopped down in front of the cat like it was no big deal, thinking this is where things had ended up. Right then, a guy with some seriously bright eyes showed up. Blue hair walked up to him, reaching out a hand. The guy looked at Gilfaz, checking if he was okay. Gilfaz slowly looked up. Gilfaz raised an eyebrow, sizing up the kid in front of him. The boy didn't seem scared at all. Instead, he just gave a small laugh and introduced himself as Ling Gaze from Old Scale Village. He said he thought Gilfaz might need some help, so he decided to step in. Gilfaz checked him out for a second. The guy seemed kinda shy, but you could tell he had something going on. He stood up and dusted off his clothes, thinking this dude really had some nerve. He quickly apologized, saying Lingase. Gilfaz introduced himself. Ling heard the name and just stopped for a moment. Something about Gilfaz sounded weird, like it had its own vibe. Gilfaz just kept it cool and asked what was really going on. They're about to make everyone go through this wild exam thing. Gilfaz just stood there, looking kinda confused, while everyone else seemed surprised. He honestly had no clue what the exam was about, even though everyone else knew it never changed. Ling stared at him, not believing someone would show up like that, totally unprepared and with nobody to back him up. To her, it seemed wild that he'd just walk in like it was nothing. Before he even got a chance to react, someone yelled from behind. It was a loud call-out targeting Ling. Both of them turned around, instantly on alert. He was this tall guy with wide shoulders, the kind you'd notice right away in a crowd. He walked up looking super cocky. Ling instantly tightened up, not liking where this was going. The bully just shot him a nasty look, clearly thinking Ling didn't belong there. Lingazi's fists tightened. He remembered he was supposed to be here for the Dragon Nest exam, even though someone just told him to go home and play babysitter before he made a fool of himself. He tried to play it cool, but the words still got to him. The boy just started laughing, not holding back at all. He couldn't believe someone like him would even try to get in. To him, there was no way the son of a mock dragon would make it. He really thought Gilfaz was just wasting his time. Gilfaz's eyes narrowed, not backing down. He looked around, realizing that this was just how things worked here, even with the Eldragon. He knew bloodlines had levels, like some people just started out higher than others. He always figured that was just how things worked. He thinks about it and realizes the family is split up by how strong everyone is. Baby dragons, teens, and adult dragons, older dragons, and then the absolute legends at the top. At the bottom, the mock dragons waited for anyone who might show up. He never even made it into the dragon nest, let alone graduated. Lingay just couldn't get through. He clenched his jaw and started shaking, clearly annoyed. He wanted to show everyone they were the real deal, no cap. Gilfaz moved up, staying cool but making it clear he wasn't messing around. The bully just stared him down, clearly not happy. The guy stared him down, trying to figure out who this random dude was and if he was about to start something. But the other guy just brushed it off, acting like nothing was wrong. Gilf's name was about to get dropped, but things got interrupted. Foz answered without missing a beat. He honestly wanted to know what made it so hard for him. The bully shoved at him right after. Everyone just stared at Ling, pointing fingers his way. The only reason? None of them had any real strength. Gilfaz's eyes shifted, trying to figure out what was going on. He felt cold and weak, but that wasn't the whole story. In his head, he thought about what would happen if he actually let some of his real power out. People really had no clue how strong he actually was compared to everyone else. Lingaz's eyes went wide, totally caught off guard. He was caught off guard seeing how confident Gilfaz was in him. The bully stared back, not expecting that energy. He looked straight up angry, like he was about to lose it. Was this dude really about to put himself below the other guy? Gilfaz just stood there, totally chill, but you could tell he wasn't backing down. Right then, the instructor showed up. His voice bounced off the walls and carried all the way through the courtyard. Everyone snapped to attention as he yelled out that the adult dragon examiners had shown up, holding up his shiny gold badge for everyone to see. The place was packed with people watching as the Dragon Nest entrance exam was about to kick off. After signing up, everyone grabbed their number tags and moved toward the second gate, trying to keep things in order. All the young guys waiting to take the test started getting restless, some trying to size up the competition. Everyone started moving. Renaud shot a cocky look over his shoulder at Gilfaz, that smug energy all over his face like he owned the place. He was basically saving Gilfaz's face to memory for later, just being petty. But Gilfaz just stared right back, totally chill, not letting it get to him at all. Renaud just looked annoyed, acting like everyone was overreacting. He started complaining about how guys their age were always losing their cool. Before Gilfaz could even say anything, Lingay pointed out under his breath that they were all the same age anyway. Gilfaz just let out a quiet sigh, not really sure what to say back. He laughed it off. Honestly, pretty much anyone would get annoyed if someone called them weak. It's just better not to treat people like they're below you. That could come in handy one day. Renaud just rolled his eyes and kept quiet, then headed off. As everyone started making their way to the exam spot, Gilfaz followed along. He wondered why this entrance exam seemed so weird. Saying nobody could pass? That just sounded ridiculous to him. Renaud honestly had no clue what he was talking about. Ling's eyes opened wider for a second. Right then, he realized that if someone really couldn't keep up, they could just dip out. But honestly, he started thinking that this guy had no clue what the test was actually about. Gilfaz cut in, totally caught off guard by what he just heard. He honestly couldn't believe it. They were allowed to leave? Ling looked kinda nervous, but tried to play it cool with a shaky smile. Gilfaz's face got serious for a second, like he was set on what he believed. For him, quitting just wasn't an option, no matter what. Ling just stood there, kind of caught off guard and not sure what to say. Gilfaz just shrugged it off, barely smiling like he wasn't even stressed about not knowing what was on the test. He looked chill, ready to go. Ling let out a sigh, realizing the exam was about to kick off. A couple minutes went by, and then the instructor came up again, his voice loud enough to grab everyone's attention. He laid out the next challenge. Basically, all they had to do was try to scratch this rock. They let him through, but told him he couldn't bring his own weapons, only what they gave him. Using just his fists was fine, as long as he left some kind of mark. He started grinning, looking a little too confident. Each person just got 3 shots at this. Gilfaz watched, curious to see what would happen. Gilfaz kept his head up, sounding pretty chill about the whole thing. To him, this task seemed way too easy. Ling just stared at him, kind of surprised. Was it really that simple? Gilfaz didn't say anything out loud, but in his mind he was thinking this was just some basic test. Just scratch a rock and you're good. He thought it was going to be wild, like that dragon trial, something next level, but honestly this just seemed kind of basic. Not long after, the first contest kicked off. He stepped forward, pulled himself together, and swung at He threw the stone as hard as he could. The blast went off, and the wave just tore through everything. He bounced back and dropped to the floor. He kept blacking out over and over, just out cold. The instructor didn't react, just kept writing stuff down like it was no big deal. First try? Didn't work. There's still 2 more shots. The question hung in the air. Was he down to go again? One of the examiners leaned in, smirking as he called it a loss, and had the guy taken out. Then, the next person got ready to step up. Gilfaz looked over at Ling, feeling kinda nervous as he stepped up. This kid looked straight up scared, even though it was just a test. He looked over at the rock. His face froze up. He stared, trying to figure out what he was looking at. Ling pointed out the regeneration stone. This thing could fix itself fast, no matter how messed up it got. But if someone tried to smash it, the stone would just bounce that power back way stronger, like hundreds of times. Honestly, it was kind of scary how wild that was. That material was wild, nothing normal about it. Gilfaz looked at it and couldn't help but frown. Ling seemed chill, just nodding like he already had it figured out. He explained how, if someone runs ether source power through their body right before going in for a hit, that crazy material could actually get scratched. That was the trick. Gilfaz took it in, thinking hard about what that meant for him. This part wasn't really about who's stronger in a fight. It was all about who could handle their ether power better. He just sat back and watched, taking it all in. One guy after another just kept messing up. Looked like barely anyone was going to make it through, even those cocky dudes from earlier. He spoke quietly, almost to himself. Off to the side, an examiner announced that number 51 was out. Students kept getting dropped one after another. Next up was number 315. Gilfaz glanced at his tag and gave a small smile, ready for his shot. Ling's face tightened up. He was worried and kind of wanted Gilfaz to back out, just in case. Every week, Gilfaz just shrugged it off, totally chill. Ling just stood there, surprised, not really sure what to think. He didn't hold back at all. He just looked straight ahead like he already knew he had this in the bag. The instructor suddenly got louder, calling out to candidate 3-5 and asking if he wanted to grab a weapon. But before anyone even had time to process what was happening, this wild wave of ether energy shot through the room. The instructor just stared, eyes going wide, as this bright light started pouring out. Gilfaz stood there, looking kind of out of it, but you could tell he was built different, like somehow heavy, even if he looked chill. He flashed this small, confident grin, just letting everyone know he had it under control. He made it clear there was no need to worry about anything else. The instructor stared at Gilfaz, clearly not believing what he was seeing. Gilfaz just stood there, cool and steady in front of the huge testing stone, not bothered at all. He didn't even flinch. He was set on going in with just his fists, confident he didn't need any weapon to prove himself. Guys in the crowd started whispering to each other, all eyes on him. Was he seriously about to try the test with just his hands? Everyone knew it didn't matter how good he was with ether. Nobody could break that stone with one punch. Most thought his arm would get wrecked before he even made a dent. The rumor went around fast. All around, Lingus stood with the other people taking the test, his hands balled up tight. He stood there, low-key nervous, legs starting to shake a bit while watching Gilfaz step up. In his head, he was locked on one thing. He totally knew this was coming and couldn't stop thinking about how he should have tried harder to shut it down. The instructor just looked at him for a bit, face totally unreadable, then finally gave a cold signal to start. Gilfaz got ready. He pressed his hand against the smooth, shiny magic stone. Honestly, he'd never seen anything like it before. The thing probably showed up sometime in the last 1,000 years, and he knew there was still a ton he didn't get about it. A small smile slipped onto his face as he thought about it all. He didn't really care. Golden energy started to build up around his fist, shining with this intense, almost blinding light. He freaked out and tried to stop Gilfaz, but he was already too late. Gilfaz's eyes lit up and there was no turning back. He was hyped as he let all his energy out. That was probably just what he needed to get through. He let everyone know he was ready to go all out, no holding back. His fist lit up and he powered forward, pulling off the Dragon Slayer move like he'd been training for this moment forever. His punch landed, and the whole arena just blew up with noise. The shockwave hit hard, sending dust and dirt flying everywhere. Mist shot up into the air, and the ground started rumbling under their feet. Ling. Vegas threw his arms up to block his face, eyes wide. He couldn't believe what just happened. The instructor just stood there, completely stunned, not saying a word. Once the air cleared, everyone could see the testing stone, supposed to be impossible to break, was smashed into tons of pieces. Gilfaz was still standing there. Right in the middle, he dropped his fist, and that golden glow on his hand started to disappear. He checked out the wreckage, thinking it looked like something serious had gone down. He knew this move was just out of reach for now. His practice hadn't caught up yet. He just gave a small smile, acting like it was no big deal, even though the session was a bit longer than usual. The whole place went quiet, and everyone just stared with their mouths wide open. Renaud, that cocky guy from before, just stood there, eyes wide open. He couldn't believe someone actually broke it. That was wild. A blonde girl standing close by looked impressed, clearly thinking that what just happened was wild. Lingus just stood there, still trying to wrap his head around what he'd just seen. At the same time, the instructor. His mind started spinning. He just couldn't believe what was happening. Nobody expected this kid to break a regeneration stone, since only people at 4-star rank or above could even scratch it. Everyone just saw him as the illegitimate son, so seeing him pull that off had them confused. Nobody was sure if he really got the Eldragon bloodline power or not, but right then the instructor suddenly remembered something. He'd seen that move before. It was just like how Gilfaz used to do it. He saw the guy just staring at him, totally zoned out. Wanting to break the awkward silence, he asked how he did and what his score was. The instructor had to clear his throat, probably trying to get himself together before calling out, "Candidate 350. He made it through. Gilfaz just gave a small smile. Then something else happened. The instructor rushed over, holding out a potion for him. He called him master and told him to take it. Gilfaz looked at the potion, not really trusting it. He wondered what it even was, but decided to keep moving. The guy mumbled under his breath, trying to hand it over and hoping people would move aside. Gilfaz's face tightened up, looking kind of annoyed. He couldn't believe this was actually the reward now. He let out a sigh and made a sound with his tongue, just thinking about how unreal it was. Lingus darted over to Gilfaz, grabbing his hand, eyes lit up with excitement. He was seriously hyped about what Gilfaz just did, smashing that whole stone like it was nothing. Gilfaz stood a little taller, looking pretty proud, and tossed back a confident smirk. He tried to chill out for a second, but then he realized he was holding some weird potion bottle and started looking confused. Meanwhile, Lingus just stood there, acting like it was no big deal. Turns out, he just picked up a healing potion. Gilfaz shot him a look, eyebrow up. Healing potion? That sounded weird. Lingus grabbed the bottle, checked it out for a second, then popped it open. Nope, definitely not what he expected. Gilfaz stared at the normal grade, squinting a bit. It didn't seem dangerous or anything, but he started wondering if he just found some kind of elixir. He remembered reading about this elixir, a potion people made using super rare stuff. Made with herbs you can only find in hidden spots, mixed with some wild elixir, plus a bit of power from rare beasts, either holy or straight up legendary. This stuff doesn't just patch up fresh cuts. Old injuries disappear right away too, and your ether gets a serious boost. But getting the ingredients is wild tough since they're super rare and risky to find. Scoring one of these is basically unheard of. You hardly ever see them up for grabs. Still, Gilfaz couldn't help himself. Curiosity took over, and he went ahead and drank it. He downed the whole potion at once, and right away his body lit up bright red. Bright purple energy lit up the room. His eyes went wide. Was this actually happening? Lingus stared at the bottle, totally lost. He'd never even heard the word elixir before, and honestly, he had no clue what he was looking at. The healing potions from the Eldragon family just hit way different compared to the stuff you get at regular shops. Gilfaz couldn't help but laugh to himself, kind of proud. Someone else seemed curious, kind of surprised by that. He couldn't believe it. His cuts were gone in seconds. The guy looked a little annoyed, though. There wasn't that crazy energy boost he'd get from a real elixir, but Lingus seemed pumped anyway. But Gilfaz couldn't help but roll his eyes. Honestly, he thought the guy was even more insane than the potion everyone was hyped about. Most people don't talk like that, and Lingus couldn't help but laugh. He knew it was true, he really was insanely strong, and everyone around him noticed it. Gilfaz just shrugged, acting like it was no big deal, but he admitted he was trying to be the strongest out there. Lingus paused for a second, surprised by how casually Gilfaz said it, like he just dropped some random fact. Renaud had been sitting there, listening to their upbeat conversation for a while, and honestly, he couldn't believe what he was hearing. He clenched his fists, thinking these guys were wild for talking like that. Right then, the instructor's voice boomed across the arena, snapping everyone back to reality. Candidate 382 got the green light. After that, the other candidates finished up their challenges and grabbed their healing potions, one after another. Lingus glanced over at a younger kid from the Eldragon family, kind of hinting that everyone already knew he'd get picked. Right after that, the announcer called out for the next person. Lingus got ready to step up. Lingus paused for a second and pulled in some air, steadying himself. He knew it was his shot now. No backing out. Right next to him, a boy stood waiting, probably sizing up the moment just like he was. Gilfaz had that usual smirk, messing with Lingus and telling him to get it together. He was hyping Lingus up, acting like everything was no big deal. Lingus tried to hold it together, but his eyes started to water. Deep down, he just hoped nobody would call on him. He didn't want to set the bar that high, but he held onto his sword tight. The instructor called it, and just like that, Lingus went for it, charging straight ahead. He put everything he had into that hit, but his sword just scraped by. Lingus hit the stone, but it didn't budge. Instead, he got sent flying back and wiped out on the ground. The instructor looked down at his notes, marking that the first try with Lingus's stare didn't work out. There were still 2 chances left. Lingus let out a groan and pulled himself back up, not ready to quit. He hyped himself up to try again, totally sure he'd nail it this time. He went all in with another swing, but still missed. The sword bounced right back. He dropped down to his knees, completely out of breath. Something was going on right behind him. Behind him, Renaud couldn't hold it together and started laughing. He always thought a half-dragon would stay weak no matter what. Breaking that stone? No shot. The bullies were right there watching it all go down. Everyone else jumped in, looking like they were ready to call it quits. He remembered what that guy said. Apparently, this Lingus kid was supposed to be tougher than all of them. They couldn't hold it together and started laughing even louder, clowning on both Lingus and Gylfis, the instructor. Lingus was down to his final shot. Everything was on the line, and he had to decide if he was going for it one more time. Lingus started shaking. All he could hear were whispers and people laughing at him, and it really got to him. His heart just dropped. Then, out of nowhere, something steady cut through the noise. Out of nowhere, someone's voice cut through all the chaos, calling out to Lingus and catching him off guard. He glanced up and spotted Gylfis heading his way, looking totally chill. Lingus just stood there, totally caught off guard. Gylfis looked at him, wondering why he didn't just grab a spear like everyone else. Lingus had no idea what to say. Using a spear hadn't even crossed his mind. Gylfis stood there, arms crossed, looking kind of annoyed. Renaud just stared at him, almost laughing, like he couldn't believe what he was seeing. Gylfis was holding his sword, but it was obvious he wasn't really sure what he was doing with it. Renaud looked ready to roast him, barely holding back a smirk. This whole moment had both of them sizing each other up, neither one backing down. Switching weapons could actually make things easier. He realized his dad never even showed him how to do it. He wondered if anyone ever actually showed him how to use a spear. Gylfis didn't even bother with him and just focused on the example instead. The examiner turned to the instructor, checking if changing weapons during the test was allowed. The instructor just shook his head, letting everyone know it was totally fine. Delphi had this smug look on his face. He glanced at Lingus, almost daring him to stop second-guessing himself. This was Lingus's moment, and Delphi's vibe got way more serious, like he wanted Lingus to realize it was now or never. His eyes went razor sharp, almost like he was locked in on something big. Lingus just stopped in his tracks, not moving at all. Rose zoned out for a second, memories from back in the day rushing in. Those times when everything just went sideways, people laughing, and nothing ever seemed to work out. Then, he tightened his fist, pushing down the nerves. That fear he had before, gone now. He was locked in and ready. Standing up straight, he faced Gylf and made it clear he wasn't backing down. He decided to give it another go, this time grabbing the spear. Right then, Lingus started remembering stuff from his past, like old memories just popped up in his head. His dad never got let inside the dragon nest. Back when he was a kid, people used to clown his dad, calling him a Pazidu dragon. Still, his dad always understood what was really going on. He never backed down, always had my back. The only reason I'm Lingus now is because of him. One way or another, I'm going to show everyone I'm the real deal. Right now, he held onto his spear, ready for whatever was about to go down. This moment, it was happening, right here. He went ahead and decided to show everyone he was serious. He knew swinging the sword again wouldn't change anything, so he decided to trust what Gylfaz said. Still, he had no clue how to even start using a spear. Out of nowhere, Gylfaz locked eyes on the stone and just motioned that he wanted it pushed straight in. He told him not to stress about it and just go for it, Lingus. He squeezed his hand tighter, eyes locked straight ahead, talking to himself under his breath. Gylfaz just watched, smiling like he knew something. Usually, nobody would make it this far. Even if it was a guy picking up a spear for the first time, he could just stab it forward and actually mess up a regeneration stone. Lingus stopped for a second and took a deep breath, stuck wondering how he was supposed to figure things out when the other guy hadn't even made a move yet. He thought about death. They had just met that day, so it felt kind of weird, but he figured he'd give it a shot. Gylfaz trusted him, so he decided to trust Gylfaz back. He got into position, and right away he could tell the spear was buzzing with some wild energy. Even back when he held a sword, it never felt anything like this. This was on a whole different level. He hit the center of the reincarnation stone, and out of nowhere, Renard just knocked out and went straight to sleep. He just stood there, laughing like he owned the place. To him, switching weapons didn't change a thing. Angus noticed something weird going on. It almost felt like this thing had always been with him, like it was just built in from day one. He went for another hit, and this time, he nailed it. Renard's eye looked locked in. There was this heavy, raw energy behind it, like he was ready to take on anything. His eyes went wide, and his jaw just dropped. He seriously couldn't believe what was going on. The instructor couldn't believe what just happened. He saw that it wasn't just a tiny mark dude actually went through the whole thing. Lys's heart started pounding when he heard Gylfas start clapping. Gylfas seemed impressed, saying Lingus nailed it. Lingus just stood there, frozen, not sure if he really pulled it off. The instructor called out the results, and when he got to number 440, he let everyone know that he passed. Lingus couldn't believe what he was seeing, and his eyes started to water. Gilfaz moved in, closing the distance between them. He couldn't stop smiling. Yeah, he really pulled it off. Just like he expected, he passed. He went in for a hug, totally hyped. Lingus held on tight, barely holding back tears as he looked at Gilfaz and tried to say thanks. Gilfaz just stayed chill, like he'd already told Lingus this before. Renard just rolled his eyes. He figured it was all luck anyway. Right then, the instructor called it test time was up. The entrance ceremony was just getting started. Gilfaz leaned to the side, kind of out of nowhere. His head spun for a second. Was that entrance ceremony really the whole test? Lingus just nodded, kind of unsure but going with it. There might be another test waiting once they get inside, but right now, that's not something he's worried about. It's out of their hands now. The Eldragon family's boss is the one who'll handle the money. Everyone was sending their congrats, but Gilfaz looked over at the head of the Eldragon family. The guy walked in, and you could just tell he was built different. His energy kind of took over the whole room. Gilfaz couldn't help but look at this dude, wondering who this mysterious, intense guy even was. Lingus started shaking. That was their family boss, Lord Beleza Eldragon. How did nobody notice? Gilfaz just stared, not impressed. The guy running the show always looked serious. Couldn't he chill out a bit? Lingus couldn't even finish his thought. He covered Gilfaz's mouth fast, hoping he'd chill out. Gilfaz calmed down a bit, but still couldn't totally settle. Families or friends in the room watched closely. Several people who were already sick started getting totally overwhelmed. There were star-level fighters in the room. Balaza Elf, the head of the family, was in charge. Dragon had this insane 8-star power just pouring off him. Back then, there were only about a dozen guys like him. Now, no one really knows how many are out there. Gilfaz kept it to himself. He just wasn't a fan of that guy. This was what his dad said, straight from Lord Beleza. He locked in, paying full attention. He let his own power loose. His body started to change, turning solid and real. The blood of the Eldragon. Gilfaz had this dark red glow coming off him, like he was straight up powered up. The arena was packed. Kids started whispering to each other, all eyes on him. Nobody could believe how strong he was. It was hard just to catch his breath. Lingus tried to push through the heavy pressure pressing down on him. He felt the pressure closing in, barely able to breathe right. The Patriots had everyone down bad. Even the other kids looked totally defeated around them. Lord stepped in next. Balaza dialed down his energy and took a step back. The senior instructor watched him closely. He started clapping, impressed by how good it was. Lord Beleza wasn't playing around. He wanted everyone to know he expected big things from them. Right then, the pressure in the room went up. Gilfaz looked over and wondered who the guy was. Another dude had just shown up. The older guy just laughed it off, not bothering with any fancy introductions. He looked at the younger ones, kind of teasing them. One of the other guys chimed in, saying it was all good anyway. He kept stressing over tiny details, like every little thing had to be perfect. Philingus was kind of in his own head, not sure what was really happening, but he couldn't help it. The vibe feels way lighter now. All the kids are finally together, just hanging out in their own world. He suddenly relaxed. The examiner stepped up and said it was finally time to show everyone where they'd be living. As soon as your name got called, you had to get moving right away. Gilfaz wanted to know if everyone was heading to the same spot. Philingus let him know that wasn't the case. There are 4 dorms in the Dragon Nest, and every student who gets in gets placed in either the east, west, north, or south dorm. Next, the instructor called out Philingus, number 315. He got up, let them know it was him, and asked everyone to look out for him. He gave a quick, respectful nod, said his goodbyes, and headed off. He headed over to the Dragon Nest East Dorm. The castle looked insane, with tall towers reaching up and everything just looking straight up awesome. It all felt kind of unreal. Deep down, Gilfaz realized things were actually different now, even after 1,000 years. He was ready to find out what was next. He finally turned the corner, thinking this had to be the spot. Man, he really messed up, got lost, and now he was running late. His roommate was probably already inside, waiting. He knocked. He reached for the door, pushed it open, and walked inside. He finally showed up and let the other guy know they'd be roommates from now on. Out of nowhere, his eyes got huge when he saw who was standing right in front of him. Gilfaz Eldragon wasn't expecting to see Lingus in his dorm room at all. He just stopped in his tracks for a second, totally caught off guard, then threw on his best confident look. Every time he smiled, it was like he actually connected with her, almost like they were on the same wavelength. He nodded quietly, admitting that, yeah, being alone was getting to him. Gilfaz dropped onto the bed, looking around like he knew there was nothing going on today. Lingus just gave a nod, agreeing that their schedule was clear. They both knew that starting tomorrow, training was about to get serious. Gilfaz looked kind of annoyed, not really in the mood. Lingus noticed right away and was caught off guard by how Gilfaz was acting. Turns out he hadn't heard what the instructor said, even though everyone else already knew. Gilfaz laughed, kind of hyped up, making it clear he hadn't really noticed what the other guy was doing. It wasn't exactly something to brag about, but he didn't seem bothered. Lingus just shrugged it off and kept things moving. It was getting late, and they all knew tomorrow was going to be tough with training kicking off early. Gilfaz wasn't thrilled about calling it a night. His face pretty much said it all, but he didn't argue. A bit later, Gilfaz found himself hanging out he stood by the window, just watching the world outside. In his head, he remembered how he was actually planning to do something else. He just wanted to bail from this lame spot and head out on some kind of adventure. Then there was that test with the reincarnation stone. He'd seen a ton of wild stuff, like 1,000 years of history crammed into one spot. He couldn't help but smirk. Hanging around with House Eldragon for a bit longer? Honestly, not a bad move. About a month later, everyone started training. All the kids got into position to start working out, and honestly, it was brutal. Some of them couldn't handle it and just broke down right there. The instructor raised his voice, telling everyone to work on the dragon breathe. He explained it was this insane breathing trick made by the 15th head of House Eldragon. Lingus could barely hang on. His hands shook as he held the iron stone, completely worn out and fighting just to handle the pressure. Everyone in the class tried to keep their posture right while the instructor walked around, watching everyone closely. He couldn't help but notice a girl with golden hair that really stood out in the crowd. Her hair slid down over her shoulders, which pretty much meant she was about to hit the second star. He noticed right away. Some of the students had already locked down the Dragon Breathe move without making a big deal out of it. He just stood there watching them go at it, muttering under his breath. Something about him just stood out. The guy looked huge. People started thinking maybe he actually got the head of the Eldragon family's power. Right then, Gilfaz Eldragon was standing there with this giant stone balanced on his head, holding two smaller ones in his hands like it was nothing. Energy wrapped around him from head to toe, showing off the power of the top move. The instructor started stressing hard. This guy never had a teacher. There was no way he was supposed to know this stuff. He paused, confused, thinking about his Patriarch. He couldn't figure out why the guy never took the time to teach him one-on-one. Gilfaz kept his cool as he explained how his own breathing style, Dragon King Breathe, got tweaked over time and handed down as Dragon Breathe. The whole thing was built to pull in energy. Ether gets pulled straight from the air into the body and starts moving around. How good this actually works really comes down to how skilled and creative the user is. That's why every noble house has their own way of perfecting it, and they keep their finished technique locked up like it's top secret. He kept going, thinking about how Dragon Breath is pretty safe and not hard to pick up, but he figured if it only works when he's standing still, it's not really helpful for him. He thought back to his old life. The dragon's secret art, called the Dragon King Breathe technique, was the only way he could use ether on the move without messing up his breathing. The power was wild, but barely anyone got it since it was tough to handle. He made it way easier, so now everyone could use it and level up the whole clan. He never. He always figured it would keep getting better and last forever. Seeing it now, he was honestly impressed. The Dragon King Breed technique had leveled up a ton. He started thinking maybe other fighting styles had changed a lot too, and that idea just made him hype. He caught himself smiling. While he did, Aelia watched Gilfaz Eldragon, just checking him out without saying anything. A while later, everyone in the dorm showed up for food. Most of the students were there, getting ready to eat together. Gilfa was acting way off, just tearing through his food like he hadn't eaten in days. He couldn't hold back anymore and just started eating non-stop, not even thinking about slowing down. After a while, he glanced over at Lingus. Lingus just looked totally wiped out, like he hadn't slept in days. Everyone could tell something was off with him. Lingus sat across from Gilfa, still trying to process how much food Gilfa was putting away. He felt totally out of his depth, just watching the guy eat like it was nothing. Lingus couldn't help but wonder where Gilfa got all that energy from, honestly a little stunned at the whole scene. Lingus stared at him like he couldn't believe what he was seeing. Wasn't this guy supposed to be out of energy? Gilfaz Eldragon just looked up, barely smiling, like it was no big deal. He pretty much told Lingus he was just weak and should eat more and train harder, dropping that advice like it was nothing. Lingus just took it in. Guess he had no choice but to step up his game. Lingus told himself to just focus and eat his own food. He was wiped out, still trying to get his energy back, but deep down he was kind of proud seeing how solid some of the others were. Watching Reynaud, he couldn't help but respect the guy. Right then, something about Reynaud stood out to him more than before. Just then, this girl with golden hair showed up. She walked over, all friendly and chill. Her eyes landed right on Gilfaz Eldragon, and she seemed genuinely impressed. Gilfaz glanced up at her, a little curious, not totally sure who she was. Lingus almost choked on his drink, totally thrown off by what he just heard. His face said it all. He couldn't believe it. Still, he tried to pull himself together fast. Nobody seemed to recognize Laika, even though she was Gilfaz's oldest daughter. When someone whispered her name, Gilfaz acted like it was no big deal and just shrugged it off. Laika looked embarrassed and kind of stunned, wondering how these guys had no clue who she was. For a second, she felt invisible, almost like some background character. Lingus just stood there, frozen, not believing what he was hearing. Gale Foz was in the running to be next year's head, so honestly, they probably shouldn't even be chatting with her. He kept that to himself, just mumbling about it. Meanwhile, Gale just stayed chill, not letting anything get to her. He's the oldest son, basically the one in charge. His eyes went wide. Was that for real? He was actually the head secret kid lined up to maybe run things next. She never just jumped into things. She liked to play it safe. Gilfaz kept it real, basically saying there was no point in lying, then went right back to eating. But Laika wasn't letting it go. She was clearly trying to figure out how he got so strong. Gilfaz didn't even look up, just kept eating like nothing happened. He said it was no big deal for him, acting super chill. Then he glanced at Lingus, who was still kind of out of it, and told him to focus on his food. Lingus, still processing everything, just nodded and went back to eating. He just went back to eating like nothing happened. Laika got a little annoyed, kind of like he was just brushing her off. Still, she pulled herself together pretty fast. She just smiled, kind of impressed, then took a seat. Next to Gilfaz, she sounded pretty hyped. She wanted him to team up with her, but Gilfaz just looked bored and barely reacted. He didn't really get what she was asking, so he just shot her a confused look. She was trying to get him to join her for something, but he wasn't feeling it at all. Laika, who worked under him, just laid it all out. She said she'd have his back. Turns out, he was actually an illegitimate kid. He knew he needed backup. He figured he could use his own abilities to give this guy a hand and help him step up as the next leader. If things worked out, he'd definitely get something in return. Gilfaz leaned back, totally confident, almost cocky about it. He was being straight up about what he wanted, not holding anything back. But he wasn't interested in any offers, he just shut it down right away, not even tempted. She felt straight up disrespected, like he just acted like she didn't even exist. It was like he didn't care at all, and that set her off. Her temper lit up instantly. Gilfaz had already blown her off once before, and now he did it again, straight up disrespecting her. He was clearly aiming for the top spot, just like she was. She couldn't take it anymore, so she turned on her heel and walked off, clearly heated. Right then, Gilfaz Eldragon watched her carefully. He watched her carefully. She was almost at 2 stars, already showing she could send her energy outside her body. For someone her age, that was pretty wild. Still, he didn't react, he just let her do her thing. He didn't really care about being in charge. Running the house wasn't a big deal to him. He could handle it without causing problems, and he kept it chill. But then, she yelled back, totally confused. Why wouldn't he just work under her? As soon as she said that, Gilfaz's face changed. He looked tight, like his patience snapped, and he was mad for real. He couldn't believe she actually said that. Grabbing his fork, he just started eating. The moonlight hit, slamming them down against the table. His energy was so intense the table straight up froze and started to split. Right underneath him, the ground felt freezing, almost like something out of a nightmare. Power just seemed to roll off him as he let out a deep growl. He wasn't about to take orders from anyone. In his mind, he was the top Eldragon, no question. Even his stare made it obvious he wasn't messing around. That moment freaked her out so much, she started shaking. She just couldn't get her words out. He took a step back without even thinking. This guy had him low-key nervous. He was definitely intense. She felt totally freaked out. She tried to chill and steady herself before saying anything. She tried to chill, but she wasn't backing down at all. She wasn't backing down. She kept going, determined to beat Gilfaz at his own game. Gilfaz and Lingus just froze, giving each other that look like, bro, what is she even talking about? Lingus couldn't wrap his head around it. Off to the side, a few of the guys started getting restless. Some people nearby started chatting about the arena. One of them wondered where everyone was headed, and another mentioned they were going to ground training. Turns out, one of the cadets fighting for the top spot was a girl, just like them. Nobody expected it when the screen in the training arena switched over and showed a woman from House Trifonia. One of the guys in the crowd just stared, totally thrown off, wondering who was behind all this. Gilfaz and Lingus landed, and a bunch of cadets were watching from the back, all locked in on what was about to go down. This was actually turning into a real duel. Some kid in the crowd tried to figure out who Gilfaz was. Gilfaz didn't look too happy about it. Something felt off. Things suddenly got real. Lingus edged forward, looking stressed. He started wondering if this was actually a good idea since Lady Laika was involved. Maybe it was time to just let things go and walk away from the fight. He tried to talk his way out, his voice kind of shaky. Gilfaz just stayed quiet for a second. He finally said he didn't really know anything about her. Still, the weird part was how suddenly serious he got. It was obvious something was up. Lingus told him he was the main son. Gilfaz just stared, totally lost. Lingus really wanted them to listen. He needed everyone to know that Lady Laika wasn't just anyone. She was Lord Belaze's daughter, the guy running things right now. Plus, she had Trifonia blood, which meant she was connected to one of the top 4 families supporting Eldrazi. He reached out, hoping someone would finally understand. Gilfaz's arm trembled a bit. Everyone knew Lord Belaze's daughter was on another level. By 7, she'd already crushed every Trifonia skill, tamed thunder spirits, and was a beast with the greatsword. Still, Gilfaz just stood there, totally unfazed. He just knows she's the head dragon's daughter, and honestly, that's enough for him. Lingus couldn't hold it in anymore and just lost it, wondering why no one gets it. His face straight up lost all color. Lingus couldn't believe what just happened. He snapped, totally fed up, and just lost it right then. No matter how tough you think you are, Lady Laika is on another level. Gilfaz Eldragon stopped for a second, kinda questioning himself about why he even agreed to this fight. He kept it cool though, and answered back when someone asked. When someone steps up to challenge him, backing down isn't even on his mind. He kept his focus right on Laika, not breaking eye contact for a second. He checked her out for a second. She looked totally ready for this. Laika's stare was cold, like she wasn't here to mess around. No more talking. She was locked in and clearly waiting to see if anyone had the guts to step up and face her. Her voice cut through the air. She grabbed her best sword, standing like a pro, and suddenly this insane energy just exploded from her. Everyone could feel how strong she was. Laika didn't wait around. He called out, telling everyone to stop messing around and get ready to throw down. Gilfaz Eldragon kept his cool, letting everyone know he was totally ready. He was locked in, calling out Lingus without breaking a sweat. Lingus yelled for them to run, hoping they'd watch out for themselves. Now it was just Gilfaz and Laika left in the arena. He watched her, trying to figure out what she was thinking. He wondered why she was so set on going up against him. Laika's eyes looked fired up, like she was ready for anything. He knew he was next in line to take over. To lock in that spot, he had to beat his rival and prove he was in charge. Gilfaz didn't look too happy about it. He wondered what any of that had to do with him as she came back. Gilfaz stared, kind of annoyed, thinking how wild it was that she didn't get what was really going on with her own family. Maybe because she wasn't officially part of it, she never even had a shot at being in charge. Meanwhile, he kept to himself the fact that he was actually the first head of the Eldragon family, not really showing his cards yet. He looked straight ahead, acting like he had it all figured out. Lycus's eyes went serious, like he was about to drop something important. Including the two of them, there were 5 people all fighting to be the next leader. So everyone else has got blood from one of the 4 big Eldragon families except for you. Those guys are top picks to run the show. What really counts here is which family ends up with the boss spot. That's just how it goes in the Dragonnet. Everyone's out here trying to prove their family's worth. If he wants to go up against his own brothers, he knows he's gonna need backup. She really pushed hard, not letting up as she tried to get Gilfaz on her side and working under her. Gilfaz answered back. He just stayed chill. All 4 of the big families were after the top spot, and honestly, it was a mess. He couldn't really keep up with all the drama at first, but now it finally made sense. Things were way more tangled than he thought. Mika tightened her hold on her sword. As a candidate, she knew she had to lock down her spot, so she was determined to prove herself in this fight. Without waiting, she stepped forward, ready to go. He dashed across the arena and jumped straight in. Gilfaz Eldragon stood there holding her sword. Rei was determined. She was set on taking Gilfaz down no matter what. Gilfaz didn't react right away. He just stayed chill and casually moved over, not showing any stress at all. He stepped back quick, easily avoiding her move. She came at him again. He tried to go for his face again, but this time his moves were way slower. He moved with crazy smooth moves, almost like he wasn't even human. Every hit came his way, but he slipped past them like he'd trained for this all his life, way out of her league. There was no way she was getting out of this. The candidate just watched, totally locked in. Gilfaz moved crazy fast, even though she was only holding a training blade. She swung that huge thing like it was nothing. Gilfaz handled the sword like it was no big deal. While Laika kept coming at him, throwing out non-stop attacks, Gilfaz just brushed them off without even breaking a sweat. She dodged every swing without breaking a sweat. Some guy watching noticed how her power felt focused and strong, but the other dude was just quicker with his hits. Turns out, this is what you get when you're the main kid from one of the top 4 houses. It looked like the match was going to be settled real soon. Lycus kept coming at him non-stop, but Gilfaz just slipped past every hit like it was nothing. He had this smug grin on his face, messing with her just to see how annoyed she'd get. He watched as her expression changed. No matter what he tried, he just couldn't get in a solid hit. Lingus couldn't help but stare, totally impressed by his friend's moves. Out of nowhere, Gilfok. He watched, totally thrown off by this move. He'd never come across anything like it before. The speed was wild. It really didn't add up for someone who's just a 1-star. But before he could process any of it, his opponent was already in his face, ready to throw down, no time for talking. Gilfuzz's face switched up, getting all serious. He decided if things weren't going to get real, he'd just take charge himself. So he moved in, ready to handle it. He stepped up and he threw a quick, sharp punch right at her. Laika doubled over, clutching her stomach as she started coughing hard. She tried to get her balance, kind of stumbling around while trying to pull herself together. She kept her sword tight in her hand. Behind her, a cadet leaned in and whispered. Nobody could believe it. Laika was actually losing to this guy. She kept fighting, but it was clear she was struggling. He stared him down, frustrated. He couldn't figure out why his punches weren't landing, even though he knew he was supposed to be way quicker than any 1-star out there. Gilfaz just shot him a smug smile, like he already knew he couldn't be touched. She noticed he was way quicker than most of the 1-stars she'd seen, but at the end of the day, he was still just a 1-star to her. He just pointed out that they're both 1-stars, saying there's no way the other guy could keep up with him. He said it all super chill, even had a small smile, like it was the most obvious thing ever. He watches the way someone breathes, catches every small muscle twitch, even notices how their eyes move. By paying attention to all that, he can pretty much predict what they'll do next. The rest comes down to what he's been through. She attacked again, way more intense this time. No chance she was backing down, she was dead set on winning. Her sword swung in close, almost catching him. He stared right at Gilfaz, but he leaned back fast and pulled off another move. He landed a clean punch right on her. His stomach felt weird, but he stayed chill and just let everyone know he'd already explained himself. Laika got launched straight across the arena, slamming into the wall hard, almost like someone just chucked a paper airplane. Everyone watching just froze, not knowing how to react, while the lady looked totally caught off guard. There's no way she actually took the L here, right? Lingus couldn't hold back, eyes wide, hyped up. He looked at his friend, totally surprised he just took down someone as tough as Gilfaz. Eldragon just shook his head, staying chill. He knew it wasn't over yet. For him, it was still hanging by a thread. She pushed herself up, still shaking, but you could tell she wasn't backing down. She went for it again, launching herself forward. Gilfaz just watched, grinning. Pulling in that real source power to tank the hit was no joke. Lingus just stood there looking lost, trying to figure out what just happened. Laika, still hurting from the earlier hit, got smacked again by Gilfaz, and it looked rough. He could barely stay on his feet. Lingus let out a sharp breath. Lady looked completely stunned. Gilfaz just watched her, staying chill with a slight smile. He seemed to signal that she should chill out and not push things too far. If she kept going, it was clear he wouldn't take the blame for whatever happened next. She just kept talking, laying it out straight. He kind of expected it, but he'd already hit 2-star. She brought out her 2-star mana, and everyone else just stared, totally impressed. What she did was seriously next level. Someone in the back couldn't help but comment it was obvious she had that 2-star aura, and the narrator broke it down for everyone. At the 2-star level, people can actually push their real power out from their bodies when they fight, and that energy is called an aura. Gilfaz was up next, and honestly, he felt like he owed this shot. He leveled up to 2-star, all thanks to her. She lifted her head. Gilfaz held his sword, golden energy pulsing all around it. She was sure he wouldn't win this time, but Gilfaz just grinned, ready for whatever came next. His eyes lit up, catching the moment. He slipped past her swing like it was nothing. This time, Laika was moving way faster than before, like she just leveled up out of nowhere. Her moves were wild, almost unreal. Gilfaz saw it coming though. He knew she had it in her. He was pretty impressed, but out of nowhere, his cheek started stinging bad. He reached up and noticed a small cut he hadn't even realized was there. That caught him off guard for sure. He thought he'd dodged it, barely. Lycus's eyes gave him away. He was shook. She locked eyes with her opponent, not backing down for a second. That stubborn drive she had? Yeah, that was her real power. Golden energy started to glow around her, lighting her up. She was ready to show everyone what she could do with her 2-star moves. Her aura kicked in, and that's when things got real. She was about to show off the real Thunder Spirit greatsword moves. Golden energy started building up around her as she rushed forward, totally locked in. He moved forward, ready to take on Gilfo. His eyes were locked in, and you could tell he was hyped for what was about to go down. Moments like this he didn't want to miss. He was checking out a new fighting style, something totally fresh to him. This time, he wasn't even worried about losing. He couldn't believe what he was seeing. The dude's skills were unreal, and he was all in, ready to watch every move and see what else he could pull off. Right then, Laika let out this wild burst of thunderlight, aiming to freak Gilfaz out. Gilfaz didn't waste a second. He dodged to the side, not trying to get caught in that mess. He broke down and started crying, totally caught off guard. He stopped, trying to figure out what was going on. Was that lightning in her hands? He couldn't believe it. She just gave this little grin, her energy glowing even brighter like she was showing off something wild. Gilfaz just cracked a quiet laugh, actually loving the rush that came with the fight. She was totally locked in, swinging her sword down so hard the ground lit up with this wild golden energy. Even though she tried to act all serious, anyone watching could tell she was actually having a good time. Gilfaz slipped past her attack without breaking a sweat, came right back at her, and handled the play like he'd done it a million times. The way he stayed cool and locked in was actually sick. His whole vibe changed, getting way more serious. Anyone could see this was a lot to deal with. That lightning, with how things were right now, it was going to be rough. He didn't waste a second. He moved fast. He moved forward, wondering if a single star could actually change everything. Up in the stands, the other candidates were on edge, watching every move. Nobody could look away from the fight. Lingus had his fists tight, the weight of the whole thing hitting him hard. Meanwhile, Gilfaz took a good look at what was going on. Her moves looked basic, same as always, but now that she was a woman, something about it just hit different. When she hit 2 stars, the Thunder Spirit Greatsword move just went off. She was already quit before, but now she was moving at a whole new level. She was just built different, way ahead of everyone else. Seeing her surrounded by lightning like that, even back in the day, nobody could pull that off. He couldn't help but smile. He could have fought back right then, but something about that power had him low-key curious. Off to the side, Lingus noticed the small grin on his face and figured he must be feeling pretty confident, even with everything going on. Laika wasn't having it. She locked in, charging at him way faster than before, blade catching the light as she closed the gap, ready to shut down that cocky look on his face. She became straight-up thunder. Her technique kicked in, and her whole vibe changed. Lightning shot around her sword while she rushed in seriously fast. Gilf. Foz just managed to get his sword up before her attack landed. He got launched backward from the hit, crashing hard onto the ground again. Keelfa kept his eyes on the arena wall as Lingus suddenly shouted and jumped right over it. He was out on the balcony, trying hard to get to him. But then Gilfaz got up, taking his time, showing everyone he was ready to handle whatever came next. He kept grinning, dust and blood all over him like it was no big deal. He stood solid, not even flinching. Laika came right at him again. Lightning shot out, tearing up the ground, but Gilfaz moved fast and dodged without breaking a sweat. Lingus took off, running ahead with that calm confidence she always had. She shot him a hard look, almost daring him to keep going. He held her stare, not backing down, while the guy everyone was worried about somehow stayed on his feet. It was like Lingus was trying to tell her with just his eyes that quitting now would mess everything up. Nobody did anything but roast him. Lycus grabbed onto Titan, locked in. If Titan just gave up and promised to be loyal, Lycus would chill and call it quits. Then she turned her attention to Gil. Foz stood there, confident as ever. Even though he wasn't born into the family the usual way, he still had that Eldragon pride on full display. Foz wasn't about to back down. He was all in, throwing everything he had into this moment. Her energy went wild, kind of like a storm about to break loose. He gripped his sword, ready to unleash that thunder move. Heavenly thunder. Lightning smashed into the arena, and the whole sky sounded like it was yelling. The ground shook hard from the hit, like the whole place was about to come apart. Gilfaz stood there, taking it all in. He caught the whole blast straight on. His body started shaking. He dropped down on his knees. He barely managed to get out an apology, his voice almost too quiet to hear. The match just ended, but before he got the chance to react, as he wrapped things up, a burst of golden energy shot out. Right behind him, this icy voice cut through the whole arena. The guy totally called out what Laika was trying to do. She just stopped in her tracks, her eyes all over the place. He was stunned. Seriously, what was going on? How could anyone just use electricity like that? Gilfaz pulled himself together. He smirked, looking pretty sure of himself, like he just figured something out. So this was what people meant by electricity. Now he got it. He tilted his head a bit, and his eyes had this faint glow, like he was low-key charging up. Laika took a step back, totally stunned. He just couldn't believe what he was seeing. Gilfaz answered him, but Laika was still trying to process how any of this could be real. He just stayed chill, letting the hits land on purpose so he could figure out her strength. Now, out of nowhere, he realized he could use that same power. She just stared at him, totally stunned. He couldn't believe it was real. It just didn't add up. Gilfaz just smiled, totally locked in. Gilfaz glanced down at his hand, electricity flickering across his skin. He had no idea what was going on. While he was getting hit with those weird attacks, he noticed something flickering across his fingers. He stayed chill and kept blasting his Dragon King's breath. Then, out of nowhere, the lightning energy started picking up. It was like the lightning just locked on and began building up even more. Before he even noticed, he actually did it. He realized he could handle it on his own and even adjust the size however he wanted. Gilfaz just stood there, not really believing what was happening. He had this small, almost hidden smile on his face, like he wasn't sure what to make of it all. He probably had a body that was pretty unique. That sword move was something only his family used, so it made sense it was all over him, from how he fought to how he moved. His clan was built different, with bodies that could actually merge raw power and lightning together. He checked out his hand again, just staring at the sparks running across his skin. The lightning shot out, lighting up the whole area. He thought back on what he just learned. It was actually a solid lesson. Then he held up his hand, showing off the golden lightning buzzing around it. He knew he had hit that next level and was now a 2-star, all because of what just happened. The fight wasn't done yet. He knew there were others like him out there, ready to keep going. She got her blade ready, called him over, and started swinging. She went in with her blade. Both of them crashed into each other, and the whole arena lit up with thunder and lightning flying everywhere. Everyone else watching barely even breathed, eyes glued to what was happening. Meanwhile, Gilfaz just stayed cool, totally zoned in. He even had this slight smile, like he knew exactly what he was doing. The fight wasn't done. He stepped up and threw a punch, totally locked in. He threw a quick punch that connected with her sword, which was buzzing with energy. Sparks started flying all around him. He took a second to really check out what was going on. Mixing real power with lightning vibes definitely amps things up. His whole body started to feel stronger, like his muscles and nerves just leveled up. That power was wild, seriously next level. He tightened his fist and a grin showed up on his face, realizing he was finally figuring things out. Off to the side, Lingus kept an eye on everything. He was honestly stunned. Watching the top guys from the Eldragon family go at it was wild. He could barely keep track of what was happening. Maybe he was just overthinking, but it felt like he was way out of his league. Laika was locked in, swinging her sword like she was calling down a thunderstorm. Lightning kept flashing with every slash, but nothing she threw was landing. Nobody could get to Gilfaz now. He slipped through the chaos on the battlefield like he was untouchable, moving smooth and quick. Laika watched everything she did and started getting annoyed, thinking she was messing with him. Gilfaz just smiled, totally chill, and shook his head. He wasn't bothered at all. He actually thought of him as serious competition. Then, without wasting a second, he moved fast. He knocked her sword up with a move so smooth it almost looked easy, then jumped back, arms stretched out like he was just chilling. He checked his hands, eyes giving off a soft glow, like he was getting hyped for the final move. This was it, time to wrap things up. He thought about it for a bit, then decided to switch things up and come up with a new move. Laika looked at him, eyebrows pulled together, clearly not getting what he was up to. Gilfaz just nodded when someone brought up a new technique. He looked ready to try something different, but then he backed off, deciding not to go for it. It was like she pulled off some kind of special move and just froze everything. That technique really had him stuck, and he started wondering if this meant he was done for. She kept thinking about that wild fighting move he used. Was that some hidden martial art, or did he just make it up on the spot? Her mind wouldn't chill. She was stuck trying to figure it out. Something about this felt different. Was this some kind of Dragon Slayer move? She barely had time to process it. Right then, a wild storm started spinning up around Gilfaz. He was locked in, powering up with the Tempest of Thunder move. The air literally snapped, like the whole place was about to go off. Lightning shot through the air, and just the force from it was enough to make her legs give out, like she couldn't even stand up straight. He dropped down to one knee, totally overwhelmed by how intense his presence was. She tried to keep fighting, swinging her sword even though she was seriously running out of energy. Not long after she hit the ground, everything going dark as she started to black out. Gilfaz let out a slow breath and dropped his arm. That fight had really grabbed his attention, and even though he was calm, you could tell it left an impression on him. Laika pushed herself to sit up, not ready to give in. She wasn't about to let herself lose, even though she looked beat. She caught her breath, and her thoughts started racing. Her memories kept popping up, the promise she made to beat her brother, and the pride she carried around because of it. He thought about everything she was carrying on her shoulders. There was no way he could let himself lose now. Gilfaz was all that mattered. He stepped up with a real chill smile, looking impressed. That last move? Seriously wild. He could tell Laika had some serious strength. For him, picking up new stuff always felt awesome, and today was totally worth it. He reached out his hand, ready to keep things moving. He handed it to her, looking confident, like he already knew they'd cross paths again. He was ready to team up and take on whatever came next. Laika paused for a second. Her eyes got a bit bigger, and a light blush showed on her cheeks. Her cheeks warmed up. It was weird. This time, it wasn't the sunlight or anything like that. It was just what he said that got to her. Gilfaz gave a chill smile, not really showing off or anything. He told Laika they should run it back sometime, but for now, Laika should just take it easy. Gilfaz was already hyped for the next time they'd face off. Laika glanced over, taking it all in. She looked at him, still shaking from being totally wiped out. Then, she reached over and grabbed his hand. Deep down, she knew she couldn't keep up with him, and that realization kinda stung, but she respected it too. She knew she'd been completely outmatched. He flashed a small smile, those gold eyes steady like nothing could shake him. He let the other guy know he did good in the fight, then just walked off. A few hours passed after that. A few hours passed, and now everything switched over to the Eldragon, chilling way inside the rift. Everyone knew the head of the family. Across the whole continent, people talked about how he was like a one-man army. He was hands down the strongest guy when it came to using dragon power. He stood deep underground, monsters everywhere around him, their shapes twisted and creepy. The place was pitch black, and he could feel the pressure of all that power building up. He just froze right there in the forest, not moving an inch. His eyes were straight up icy, showing no mercy. The creature. They rushed him from every angle, wild and ready to throw down, but the Patriarch just stood there, locked in. He let loose. A massive blast of dragon energy hit, making the whole place feel like it was shaking. The smaller monsters couldn't handle it, they just dropped right there, totally wrecked by his presence. He moved ahead, lifting his. He grabbed his huge sword, the one everyone talks about for taking down 1,000 monsters, and got ready to use his dragon destruction move. In just one second, his sword ripped through the air with a flash so bright it was almost blinding. The whole forest blew up with the sound of a roar. As soon as the light died down, all the monsters were already torn apart, scattered everywhere. He went down with just one hit. The Patriarch slid his sword back into its sheath. A bunch of Eldragon family guards showed up. He took care of the last few monsters. Right after that, a knight in full armor came running in. He walked over to him and dropped down on one knee, showing respect. Plaza was on duty when a knight rushed in, clearly on edge, bringing some news straight from the academy. The Patriarch didn't waste time. He shot the knight a hard look, clearly wanting answers fast. Without any warmth in his voice, he demanded to know what was going on and why the knight had shown up in person. He bowed low, then let him know that Lady Laika just hit 2 stars. The Patriarch's eyes narrowed, showing he was sizing things up and getting serious. There was a small spark in his eyes, barely there but real. 2 stars. He got it right away. She finally woke up. His face didn't give much away, but there was a hint of a smirk, not because he was proud, but because he was curious. The Patriarch watched closely. His eyes went cold, getting even darker for a second, like some sadness flashed through but disappeared just as fast. Deep down he tried to brush it off, thinking it didn't matter whether she hit 2 stars or not. Still, the knight just kept moving, not slowing down for anyone. He stepped up and pointed out that, honestly, hitting 2 stars this young was kind of insane. With skills like Lady Laika's, she could probably level up to 4 stars, maybe even 5, before she finished a dragon nest. The Patriarch's face showed he was impressed. Nothing about him changed. He just stared, saying talent didn't matter at all. He wanted to know when she'd finally do something worthwhile. If all they had was some random update, he wasn't interested and wanted them out. The way he spoke was so icy, everyone could feel it. The senior knight paused for a second, then spoke up again. He let the news drop that Lady Laika had lost. Hearing that, the Patriarch froze. Her eyes opened a bit more, almost like something just snapped her out of it. He couldn't believe what he was hearing. Did she really lose? Was she actually going up against one of the older kids? Even though he kept his voice steady, you could tell he was struggling to wrap his head around it. The knight just shook his head, refusing. He wasn't the one, someone else had done it. He was just a kid, same age as her, but he actually took down Lady Laika. Lord Gilfaz was his name. The Patriarch's face shifted just a bit when he said Gilfaz, like something actually got to him for a second. Everyone knew that woman had a kid. Yeah, she was built for fighting, no doubt, but she didn't make it. She passed away when her son showed up. The knight nodded, totally locked in. He knew Lord Gilfaz had somehow taken down Lady Laika, and the wildest part was, Gilfaz pulled it off with 0 training from anyone. He'd even gotten further than anyone expected. He reached the 2-star level all on his own. The Patriarch just went quiet, not even sure what to say. He paused for a second, mumbling something under his breath before looking away. So, it was finally time to kick off the first trial. The night was just getting started. He jumped back, not ready for what he just heard. He tried to push back, saying it felt way too early for this. Most of these guys barely started training a month ago, and they hadn't even hit their first star yet. The Patriarch just stared at him, his eyes getting way more intense. He just shrugged it off, barely caring if they trained or not. Death shows up for everyone, no matter who they are. Only the strong ones really get through it. Making it through the first trial wasn't optional. Anyone who couldn't handle it, no matter how strong they thought they were, just didn't deserve the Eldragon name. The nightmare awaited. He dropped his head, showing respect like always. The Patriarch didn't waste any time. He faced the cave and, out of nowhere, told someone to bring Fyra. The night was just getting started. The knight glanced up, caught off guard. She realized she'd be the one in charge of everything going down in this big trial, the one everyone was talking about. The story kept moving forward. She was told to keep an eye on everything, watching every detail. He agreed without any questions. As the knight walked out, the two were left together. The Patriarch squinted, his mind drifting back to Gilfaz. There was just something about that kid that kept grabbing his attention. The next morning, sunlight poured over the training grounds as the students showed up, ready for whatever was coming their way. The Eldragon family was out there training hard, weapons clanging and energy buzzing all around. Lingus was totally locked in, getting better every day at his Strike Dragon combat moves. His hits were getting way cleaner. Meanwhile, Gilfaz was out there doing his own thing again, going all in with some weird training routine. He had these massive rocks stacked on his shoulders and hands, just holding them like it was nothing. Sweat streamed down his face, but he stayed locked in, not losing focus for even a second. For today, he'd picked out 2 huge stones and a couple medium ones, thinking this setup was almost like dealing with dragon breath. This was one of those wild training routines the 15th Eldragon head came up with. A combat move built to level up your body, and honestly, even kids could get the hang of it if they really locked in. Gotta be careful with this one though. Lingus looked over at him and wasn't impressed. He just frowned, clearly not buying what Gilfaz was doing. Gilfaz noticed and just lifted an eyebrow, confused about what Lingus wanted. He figured he was putting in the work, but Lingus wasn't talking about regular workouts. He was getting at something else, real training, the kind that actually mattered for Strike Dragon combat. Gilfaz let out a sigh, already tired just thinking about it. Gilfaz dusted off his hands, looking like he'd already figured things out. Lingus just stood there, totally thrown off. Gilfaz had barely started practicing this thing a minute ago. But Gilfaz had that calm, almost smug grin, like he was already on another level. He narrowed his eyes, ready to say what really mattered next. Lingus froze for a second, totally thrown off by what he just heard. Energy flow? That made 0 sense to him. Gilfaz let go of the rocks, and this soft golden glow started coming off him. He told Lingus to turn around, so Lingus did. Out of nowhere, everything just went wild for him. He noticed his body getting lighter, almost like gravity just stopped working on him. His feet left the ground by about an inch. For a second, he wondered if he was actually floating. He nodded, letting his dragon energy move right through Lingus. This was how Strike Dragon combat was supposed to work. Lingus could almost feel the dragon's breath on his face, like the power was right there with him. Lingus was honestly stunned, trying hard not to let it show. He couldn't believe how smooth Gilfaz pulled that off. Dude really had it down. Gilfaz just stood there, arms crossed, with that look on his face like he knew he was him. Out of nowhere, Gilfaz's eyes went wide. He stared at Lingus, clearly caught off guard, and called him out for not trusting him. Lingus got all flustered, not expecting that at all. He realized that wasn't what he meant at all. Right away, he felt bad about it. It just came out wrong. Nobody besides his dad had ever shown him how to do something before. He'd always wanted to get better at stuff, so this moment felt huge. He glanced down, kind of embarrassed. Everyone knew Lord Gilfaz was already stacked with fighting skills strong enough to take down Lady Laika. That's why it seemed like Strike Dragon combat arts would probably feel way too basic for him. Almost boring, honestly. Gilfaz just let out a breath. He moved his hand up, steady and chill. He knew what he just heard wasn't true, but he still managed a small, easy smile. Honestly, he was legit impressed with how solid the Strike Dragon combat moves were. While all that was going on, he kept thinking about it quietly to himself. Back in the day, his own move Dragon Destruction combat art just didn't click with his sons. They thought it was way too hard to get down. Thinking about it now, he got a little caught up in the memories, remembering how, even though the technique was tricky, it actually had a lot to offer. Power in this world works through a fighting system that starts with the first form. After mastering that, you move up to the second, then the third, and eventually the fourth. But it doesn't stop there. There's even more waiting past those levels. This was a new form he came up with during his fight against Laika. Every form he had basically unlocked a different kind of power. Everything built up to this last stage, where he just let loose with some next-level dragon power that could wreck anything in its way. He just gave a small smile, like he knew exactly what he was doing. He wondered how people handled dragon moves these days. Maybe things got easier or just cleaner overall. Either way, he was pretty hyped to find out. Gilfaz glanced back at Lingus. He mentioned he'd already wrapped up learning Strike Dragon combat arts. He was just sticking to his regular workout routine, nothing out of the ordinary. He figured everyone should just go at their own speed. Lingus paused for a second, then looked over at Lord Gilfaz, not really sure if he should speak up. He looked up, eyes lit up with hope, wanting some real training just like what he'd seen before. Gilfaz was still bleeding. Link froze for a second, not expecting that at all. Someone actually wanted him to be their trainer? He just stood there, trying to process it, while the other person nodded, totally serious. Lingus stood his ground, not backing down. He knew what he was asking sounded kind of wild, but he just wanted to level up, even if it was just a bit. Gilfaz looked at him for a second, thinking it over, and then gave a chill nod like he was down for it. Angus couldn't hide how hyped he was. His whole face just lit up. He couldn't believe Gilfaz was actually going to show him how it's done. Gilfaz just stood there, arms crossed, with a slight smile, thinking Angus was acting a little extra for someone who asked in the first place. He kept it real. No lies, no games. If someone wanted his help, they had to earn it. But before Lingus could even say anything back, someone he knew jumped in from the side, catching him off guard. Laika stepped up, her voice calm, but you could tell she meant business. Gilfaz and Lingus spun around and saw her standing there, cheeks a little red, looking serious. Lingus just stopped in his tracks, a little stiff, not really knowing what to do. Laika didn't back down. She stepped up, looking super confident, almost daring anyone to say something about it. She had this tiny smirk, like she already knew what was up. He always figured guys his age didn't stand a chance against him. He was sure he'd end up leading the family, no question. But after their fight yesterday, Gilfaz just straight up outclassed him. Gilfaz even pulled off a lightning aura move and handled it way smoother than he ever could. She just looked over and gave a small smile. She sounded like she really respected him. His confidence just got wrecked. Lingus let out an awkward cough, trying to play it cool even though he was uncomfortable. He figured it was best to just keep his mouth shut. Meanwhile, Laika kept on talking, her voice steady. Her voice was buzzing with excitement. She really wanted to level up, get strong enough to outdo her brother and even Gilfaz. She asked Gilfaz to help train her too. Gilfaz stared at her for a minute, thinking it over, before finally giving his answer. He let out a small smile, barely noticeable. So this was happening. He decided right then to step up and train them himself. Turning around, he looked at both of them, eyes locked in and ready, showing he meant business. Laika glanced at him, barely smiling. She kind of already guessed it wouldn't work out. Since he was training to become a successor too, his rivals probably acted weird around him all the time. Gilfaz stopped for a second after hearing her. Successor? That was never something he really bothered about. Lingus looked over at him, kind of whispering to himself. So, that's the so-called illegitimate kid, huh? Still, since he's the oldest son of the boss, there's no way he's not in the running, too. Gilfaz didn't let things get weird. He just shrugged off whatever was on his mind and kept it cool. He looked at the other guy and checked if he was really okay, because honestly, that injury was serious enough to bench anyone for weeks. Laika just gave a confident nod, totally chill about it. He'd already used a recovery potion, so he knew he was good, nothing weird going on, no reason for anyone to stress. Gilfaz leaned in towards Lingus, looking like he had something on his mind. That old potion still came through, working way better than anyone expected. Lingus just grinned, thinking about how the stuff he used back at the entrance exam was way weaker compared to what he had now. Lady Laika must have actually used the right potion for once. Gilfaz just grinned. This mistake ended up being kind of genius. Laika's, his cheeks turned a little red. He didn't really get what was going on. If he hadn't used the recovery potion, he'd probably be stuck in bed for weeks. But honestly, the main thing on his mind was that this guy was about to train him. She paused for a second, then mentioned he probably needed some time to get his own skills up too. Gilfaz just smiled. He didn't stress about it. He never turned down someone young who was hungry to prove themselves. Hearing that, both Laika and Lingus actually gave him a shot. She shot him a look that basically said, "Is this dude for real? Like, who does he think he is?" She crossed her arms, giving major attitude. Come on, he's not even that much older than her. Lingus just pulled a face, clearly confused. They're literally the same age, so why is he acting like he's some wise old guy? Gilfaz pulled a goofy face, kind of like a puppy trying to get attention. He knew it was true, and a quiet laugh slipped out. Laika looked right at him, not backing down at all. Even though he was the one who beat her before, she wasn't stressing about that now. She knew she didn't have the luxury to be choosy, so whatever came next, she was ready to go for it. Getting stronger was the only way for her to move up and take the top spot. She was ready to do whatever it took, no hesitation. Anyone could see how serious she was. Gilfaz just broke down in tears. He crossed his arms, giving her a hard look, thinking back to when she first started beef with him, even before she brought up being head to Dillion. He just couldn't get why she was so set on leading. Lycus's face got serious, her tone dropping. To her, the reason was obvious, but she just kept it low, barely saying anything. She knew if she didn't step up and take the lead, the only thing waiting for her was some arranged marriage. Not even a normal one, just some family deal to boost someone else. Best case, she'd end up as some random cousin's wife nobody even liked. Worst case, she'd just get stuck as a side chick. Gilfaza heard those nasty words, and his anger just went off. Seriously, what was that even supposed to mean? His whole vibe changed, face dark, eyes sharp. But Laika just kept going. Everyone knows the Eldargon bloodline is a big deal, especially with the top 4 families. Their real power is something special, and not just anyone can use it for everything. Gilfaza could feel his energy rising again. Time to dip, this guy's actually solid. He grumbled to himself, his whole body tense with anger. Just thinking about those guys made him want to lose it. His hands were balled up so tight it looked like he might snap. He was barely holding it together, almost about to let his rage take over. He looked around, annoyed at everyone sticking to those old rules. He was ready to tear it all down, but before he could even finish his thought, someone with a steady voice cut him off. The instructor's voice sliced through the noise, grabbing everyone's attention right away. Micah blinked, totally confused by what was happening. She looked over, trying to figure it out. Lingus looked like he just saw a ghost, barely able to get the words out as he started freaking out about what Gilfaz had just said. He seriously thought they were in real trouble this time. But Gilfaz? He just brushed it off, not even bothered at all. He let out a sigh, thinking how the timing couldn't be worse. Out of nowhere, the huge screen lit up, showing a red-haired girl. The instructor looked up. His voice cut through the room, letting everyone know there was a new instructor joining them from today. Even though she had a packed schedule, she still showed up in person to lead the group. He told everyone they should appreciate it, since she was there to really look out for each of them. Right then, everyone was paying attention. Just then, a young woman from Laika's crew stepped up. She had that confident vibe and looked pretty good, honestly. The way she carried herself, everyone could feel it. Laika just stared, totally thrown off. Freya stood there. The woman smiled at her, almost like she was about to say something, but just kept that look instead. She threw in a quick wink, kind of messing around. She pointed out his fast reactions, not letting it go unnoticed. Laika just stood there, not moving at all. He heard someone mention his aura was actually pretty solid, and that got him stuck for a second. She just stood there, totally surprised by what she was looking at. She hadn't even noticed anyone else around until now, which caught her off guard. Gilfaz squinted, trying to figure out who this person even was, but before he could process it, Lingus yanked on his sleeve, annoyed at whatever Gilfaz was about to say. That's when the instructor moved in again, ready to take control. Everyone knows Lady Freya. She's part of the Black Dragon Corps and goes by Freya of Gale. She always has this bright smile and waves like she owns the place. Instructor Freya stepped up, scanning the group with those intense eyes of hers. After checking everyone out, she locked her gaze onto one of the candidates. There was one person that really stood out. She looked at Lord Gilfaz, already knowing who he was, and just smiled like she was in on something. Gilfaz gave a quick nod, staying chill. It was obvious he expected her to show up. Nothing about this caught him off guard. Freya tilted her head, curious about what was going on. Gilfaz just stayed chill, acting like nothing was out of the ordinary. But when he looked at how she stood, he actually seemed interested. He pointed out that her moves were pretty unique, and Freya couldn't help but raise an eyebrow, kind of surprised by how straightforward he was. She watched him, catching a quick smirk on her lips. In her head, she pegged him as a bold kid. No surprise the boss kept an eye on him. Meanwhile, Gilfaz was totally locked in, not even noticing what was going on around him. He watched her quietly. Her stealth moves were wild, but what really got his attention was the way her energy moved. He locked in, trying to pick up every detail. Most of her power was building up in her legs, but the way it moved around didn't look like anything he'd seen before. He spotted something totally new to him. Under his breath, he wondered if that could really be what he thought it was. He noticed how Freya's footsteps didn't make a sound even though her shoes looked like they should. That had him wondering what kind of martial art she was into. It was honestly pretty cool. Freya really had his attention now. She moved up, sounding sure of herself and not holding back. Everyone already knew he was stepping in as their new instructor starting today. He told them to give it their all. Right away, the room started buzzing. People couldn't believe it. One guy, Freya of Gale, stood out among the students. He kept his voice low. Just another saying popped into his head. She's part of the Black Dragon Corps. The senior instructor just gave a serious nod. Everyone knew Lady Freya was on a whole other level. She was a 6-star rank powerhouse from the Black Dragon Corps, the kind of person everyone wanted to learn from. As soon as people realized who she was, the whole hall buzzed. Guys started whispering and you could hear everyone reacting. The Black Dragon Corps had that kind of pull, and she was right at the center of it. Under the chief's watch, someone muttered, totally caught off guard. Nobody expected her to just show up out of nowhere. Another student couldn't help but question it out loud. One of the more confident guys put his hand up, asking if Lady Freya was really about to be their teacher. She just hit them with a chill, playful grin and said she was, acting like it was no big deal. Her whole vibe switched up, suddenly playful but with an edge. She made it clear he'd have to pass her test first, and only then would she actually teach him. As soon as the word test dropped, everyone in the class went quiet. You could feel the tension. When she finally showed everyone what it was, nobody saw it coming. People just stared, totally caught off guard. She just brushed it off, acting like it was no big deal. It was pretty straightforward. All he had to do was grab this crystal ball and last a month out in Poison Dragon Mountain. As soon as they heard that, everyone in the room just stopped. Nobody moved. Nobody said a word. Lingus felt the tension go up instantly. His jaw dropped. Poison Dragon Mountain. The name alone hit him with instant nostalgia. Gilfuzz's face changed up as old memories started coming back. Poison Dragon Mountain. Dragon Mountain was basically a danger zone. The whole place was packed with poison creatures, and even touching the grass could mess you up for good. It was no joke. He just gave himself a quick, almost smug smile. He'd spent a bunch of his old lives training at that spot. It was tough, never fun, but it actually worked. Then he noticed the way the guy was looking at him. Things started to get really strict. For most kids, it honestly felt like way over the top. Freya just kept going, and if you were paying attention, you'd see she wasn't slowing down anytime soon. If the crystal breaks or disappears while you're being tested, you're out right away. In the back, a nervous kid slowly put his hand up. Freya kept smiling, totally chill. Even when someone asked what would happen if they messed up, she answered right away, not even flinching. Instructor Freya kept it real with everyone. She made it clear, mess up and you're out. But if you actually make it through, that's when things get interesting. Her eyes scanned the room almost like she was already picking out who might make the cut. She didn't even raise her voice, she just laid it all out, no drama. Poisons aren't a big deal if you know the dragon breathing technique. As long as she keeps her crystal safe, she's chilling. It's really that straightforward. Her vibe shifted. This place is crawling with monsters. She just let her energy out like it was nothing, basically saying, go beat them if you want to survive. If you can't handle it, no food, and yeah, you're done for. Time was ticking before the month ended. One dude suddenly wondered if dragon-slaying combat skills were enough to take on those monsters. Correa just smiled, looking pretty calm about everything. He knew there was still 5 full days left before the trial kicked off. In that time, everyone would get to pick one weapon style from the Eldergon family to focus on. He needed to pick some basic fighting skills to start with. If he figured out how to take down the monsters and stay alive, the rest wouldn't be that hard. But if he couldn't get the hang of his weapon in those 5 days, he was in trouble. She locked in, eyes lighting up with a sharp look. She pretty much let him know that whatever happened next, he was on his own. His hands started to fidget, nerves kicking in. Freya just looked calm, totally unbothered. This was Eldargon, where only the strong make it out on top, and if you can't handle it, you're done for. Losing meant game over, no second chances. If someone couldn't even get through a basic test here, they might as well give up and call it quits, because this place didn't go easy on anyone. Everything went quiet. All the candidates just stood there, disappointment and dread all over their faces. The room felt way more tense, like everyone was holding their breath. Gilfaz looked at everyone and couldn't shake this weird feeling inside. He felt something heavy in his chest. He started thinking if this elder was really the same one he remembered, and if this place was still the one he cared about. Random memories popped up, like a kid's face, his grandson laughing, old scenes from way back. He couldn't even tell where those memories started or stopped. For a second he just froze, caught up in it all. Freya clapped her hands, snapping everyone out of the quiet. She decided they'd talked long enough and moved things along, getting ready to hand out martial manuals for all the different weapons. Everyone just had to step up and grab the manual for the weapon they were into. The martial manuals finally got handed out, and everyone started lining up, not really sure what weapon to grab. Gilfaz just stood there thinking hard, not moving. He wasn't sure which one to go for, and his hand kind of paused while he tried to decide. For a second, he wasn't confident at all. He stared at his own face, stuck on what to do next. Choices ran through his head, and he couldn't decide. Lingus saw him freeze and moved in closer. He leaned in close and told Gilfaz to go with the spear, since that's what he used when he first got here. Right away, Gilfaz relaxed a bit and nodded, finally feeling like things were clicking. He was grateful for the advice. It made things way easier. On the other side, Laika was squinting at all the manuals, clearly not impressed. She thought even the beginner stuff for the great sword looked wild. Gilfaz glanced over at her. Laika just stood there, not expecting to get picked for swordsmanship. She looked at him, kind of caught off guard, wondering why he singled her out. He nodded toward a spot on the wall, pretty much saying she needed to work on something she didn't have yet. Laika was still processing it all. He didn't look too sure about it, but since that's what was said, he figured he'd give it a shot. Gilfaz just smiled. Brea thought about it for a second and decided to stick with what worked best for her. She clapped her hands, making a sharp sound that caught everyone's attention. Everyone grabbed their manuals and got ready. For the next 5 days, all they had to do was train non-stop. The trial kicked off. Her smile turned straight up evil. If she wanted to make it out alive, she had to start training like her life was literally on the line. Otherwise, she knew she wouldn't make it. The whole room went quiet and a cold vibe settled in. Chills ran through everyone, but Freya still had more in store. There was one last thing she tossed in, smiling as she said it. The older students from the reference pavilion would be joining in too, and they weren't just there for fun. They were coming for everyone's crystals. The whole room kind of froze, and you could feel the surprise ripple through everybody. Lingus just stared at the group. His eyes went wide. Hold up, senior students? Freya gave a quick nod. Yep, there were 10 of them. Every veteran with at least 2 stars is jumping into the same trial. Their job? Hunt him down and grab his crystal. But since there are so many of them out there, things are about to get wild. The Poison Dragon Mountain was huge, like you could wander forever and still not bump into anyone. But the second her attitude switched up, it was clear, if you did run into those guys, they'd be after you fast. Lingus couldn't take it and just puked right there. His hands started shaking. It wasn't just the monsters coming after him. Now even the older students were getting involved. It felt like everyone wanted a piece of him. She frowned, her jaw tight. Those upperclassmen were no joke. Even she knew getting jumped by a bunch of them at once would be rough. Most of the other students wouldn't even stand a chance. But Gilfaz looked totally chill, like nothing could faze him. He grabbed the manual and started flipping through it, acting like he had everything under control. It was obvious he felt good about his chances. If handling things solo got tough, he figured teaming up with a couple others was always an option. Working together was fair game. Monster hunting wasn't really a solo thing. Having more people on the squad just made it easier. He glanced over at Laika and Lingus, thinking they should probably team up too. Laika looked like she was about to say something back, but then she stopped and just nodded, realizing he had a point. Lingus turned to Gilfaz, curious about what his next move was going to be. Gilfaz flashed his usual cool grin, looking totally unfazed like nothing ever got to him. He just shrugged it off, acting like hanging out by himself was no big deal. Laika almost lost her balance, barely catching herself. She just froze, totally thrown off by the idea of being alone. It felt like her brain legit glitched for a second. Meanwhile, Gilfaz just laughed it off and acted like it was no big deal, motioning for her to get moving. He decided to grab some food before training kicked off. Lykia shot him a quick glare, clearly thinking he was kind of weird. Lingus just shook his head and let out a sigh, realizing their lord really wasn't like anyone else. 5 days later, they all met up at Poya. Dragon Mountain stood tall in the distance. The candidates lined up, all geared up in their protective outfits, ready for whatever was coming. They stood there in their suits, each gripping the weapon they picked out. The forest was dense and foggy, way too quiet for comfort. Lingus looked nervous, his voice almost shaking as he tried to lighten the mood about the weather. One of the other cadets kept it real. He didn't care about showing off, just wanted to make it out alive. Right then, Frey stepped up. She showed up right in front of them, her red hair catching the morning light. The weather was on point for a test, and she had that look on her face like she already knew something they didn't. It was clear things were about to get started. Lingus held on to his weapon, his hands kind of shaking. He looked over at Lady Laika. This was the moment they'd been waiting for. You could tell he was nervous, even if he tried to hide it. Laika just gave a quick nod, ready to go. Even Lingus, who usually kept it cool, was clearly feeling the pressure. He shot a quick look at Lord Gilfaz, kind of unsure if tagging along with Lady Laika was really his thing. Deep down, he kept thinking there were tons of rich kids everywhere, but he was just a regular guy with nothing special. No star, nothing. He couldn't help but feel out of place, almost embarrassed, just thinking about it. Everything hit him all at once. A girl with purple hair gave him a quick smile. She told Lingus they were basically the same and wondered why he looked all awkward now. Lingus held on to his spear, turned to her, and shot her a playful grin. He let her know that Raymond was always really chill with him. She turned a little red. He couldn't really wrap his head around it either. Just some regular guy hanging out with Lady Leica from the Dragon Nest East Hall. Even that yellow hair of hers stood out. The boy was from the same hometown. Leica just jumped in, full of energy. Her voice sounded super warm, like she actually cared. She didn't care about anyone's status, noble or not. She just saw their skills and wanted them there. Everyone just froze for a second, caught off guard. All eyes were on her, taking in every word. Lingus, meanwhile, just grabbed his head, trying to process it all. He gripped his spear a little harder, showing Lady Leica he was ready and understood what she needed. He promised himself he wouldn't slow anyone down. The boy with the messy hair gave a quick nod, locking in his promise to step up and not let anyone down. Leica just looked at him, a small smile showing that she appreciated his effort. Everyone knew she had their backs. It hit them right then. She totally earned her shot at being the leader. The way she stayed humble and looked out for everyone really stood out. Almost like she still had that pure, genuine energy you only see in kids. Gilfaz stood off to the side, just watching. He felt proud Leica was really showing what it meant to be part of their family. He couldn't help but smile, already hyped for the test to start. You could tell he was buzzing inside. A little behind him, two younger kids were whispering to each other, clearly on edge. They looked at Leica like she was on another level, both a bit intimidated. One of them felt nervous just being close to her, knowing she came straight from the main bloodline. The other honestly had no idea how to chill around someone like her. Leica glanced over, not really happy about being grouped with him. She was actually pretty nervous herself, but she wanted everyone to just lock in and try their best on this test. Gilfaz just blinked, kinda surprised. Everyone was caught off guard. Honestly, was there any reason to get nervous? Leica was here with all the top students, but the energy in the room was tense. You could tell everyone was on edge. All eyes shifted over to him. Everyone's faces basically said, "Dude, you're the one making everyone tense right now." Leica looked over at Gilfaz and let out a sigh. He could tell Gilfaz just wasn't getting it. None of the juniors could chill with Gilfaz around, since he'd rounded up all the top students. Just him being there had everyone on edge, probably thinking they had to prove something. Gilfaz didn't seem bothered, though. He just laughed a little, taking in the whole vibe, and thought both teams looked ready to go. He told him that this test wasn't going to be easy. That's when Leica stepped up and spoke. Lord Gilfaz stayed cool, not even a hint of nerves. Before anyone else could do anything, things moved fast. She walked in and instantly everyone looked her way. It was obvious she was the one in charge. She scanned the room, making sure the whole squad was there. Noticing some people had teamed up with their buddies, she nodded like that was cool. Then she locked eyes with Gilfaz, and you could tell things just got real. Not everyone in the group had their weapon skills down yet, so honestly, this call made sense. Faria put her hand up, ready to get things started. It was time for everyone to get their stuff together. She stared at the crystal orb in her hand, knowing the deal was pretty straightforward. All she had to do was stay inside Poison Dragon Mountain for a whole month, never stepping out, and just keep holding onto that orb the entire time. She kept explaining what needed to happen. He broke it down real simple. Just hang on to the orb until the end and you're good. The test is a wrap if you still have it. Every orb looks exactly the same, so don't slip up and lose yours. The cadet slowly put his hand up, not really sure if he should. He was thinking, if anybody drops their orb, the seniors could just scoop it up, right? Faria agreed with him. That's exactly how it works. Once everyone heads into the mountain, older students show up too, all trying to snatch orbs from the newbies. So everyone needed to be ready to throw down and protect what's theirs. Gilfaz was totally locked in, eyes never leaving Faria. He took in everything she said, already picking up on the fact that something tough was coming, while he was dialed in over in the... A little ways off, two older guys were keeping an eye on things. One of them stood out. He was tall and had that annoying, confident look on his face. He grinned, leaning in and pointing out that most of the kids out there barely had a single star to their name. His buddy just laughed, kinda evil about it, saying taking down those newbies would be a breeze. The way they joked around had the younger guys low-key freaking out. Most of them went quiet, faces dropping as soon as the senior spoke, but Faria didn't react like the others. She kept things moving and didn't let everyone just hang there awkwardly. Her voice carried across the whole field, making it clear she was done explaining. The test was starting right now, and all the elders had already dipped. The descendants took off toward the rough mountain, everyone on edge. Leica shouted out, breaking the silence. Her voice came through, and you could tell she was worried. She told Gilfaz he had to make it out alive. Gilfaz just nodded back, serious as ever. He let her know she needed to stay safe too. Right then, something happened. He broke off from the group and went his own way. Leica glanced over her shoulder and told everyone to move out. Instructor Freya and the others followed right behind her. Gilfaz just stood there looking kind of lost. The group kept going, but he threw out a quick smile and told them to watch out. Leica glanced back and realized he hadn't moved at all. He was just standing there when she pointed out he was supposed to leave too. It took him a second to process, then he remembered, yeah, he really was supposed to bounce. He apologized, realizing he'd gotten a little too into whatever was going on. She just looked at him, tilting her head, kind of confused. He got a little too into it, totally chill and not nervous at all. Gilfaz just laughed to himself, not bothered in the slightest. He kept it cool, acting like he wasn't nervous at all, and looked right at the instructor. He let them know he was about to head out for his raid, totally confident. Freya just stared at him, not even sure what to say. She couldn't believe how this kid acted. He was definitely different. Later that night, Instructor Freya stood by the window, checking out the pitch-black forest outside. She kept her thoughts to herself, watching the trees fade into the darkness. Things seemed like they'd be fine. She looked over at another instructor, wanting his opinion on the test. The guy next to her didn't look too happy about it. He thought maybe these new students weren't ready for it yet. Another senior instructor nodded, agreeing. He knew it was true most of the group picked up the basics, but barely any of them really pushed themselves in an actual fight. He still didn't have enough experience, and he couldn't help but wonder how many people would actually make it through both parts. Out of nowhere, a cold vibe hit when Freya's face went stone cold. She just stared at them with a little smirk, acting like she knew something they didn't. She dropped a line about Poison Dragon Mountain, hinting it could change the game. There's a bunch of poisonous stuff crawling around, but the monsters aren't really tough or everywhere. Most of them are just weak, like 1 or 2 stars. She grinned while breaking it down. They figured things were probably chill mostly. Even though she sounded totally calm, both of the instructors were low-key on edge. One guy tried to play it cool, acting like he was all in. Freya's smile dropped, and her voice got real quiet. She said she'd let that thing loose later. Both guys just stopped in their tracks. One of them just stood there blinking, not sure what to do next. He stood there, totally lost, trying to figure out what just happened. Freya acted like she didn't even hear him, just kept her cool like everything was normal. Out of nowhere, she switched it up, sounding way too upbeat, and told the senior elder dropouts it was time to move out. Her lips twisted into a sly grin. She was basically telling the senior guys to go raid the juniors camp, like she was setting them loose on purpose. The whole thing was harsh. She just wanted to sit back and see how many of them would actually go through with it. She laughed quietly to herself, watching to see what they'd do next. Her eyes had that look, like she was ready to mess with them and wasn't holding back. Deep in the woods, the students couldn't sit still. Everyone was low-key hyped about the test. Gilfaz, the group's prodigy, was moving through the thick trees, staying low-key. He picked up on some movement, looked like the seniors were coming in. He spotted one of them right away. A girl was already talking under her breath while a senior guy next to her just laughed, acting all cocky. He clearly thought it was dumb for anyone to still be here. The girl got her bow ready, looking like she was about to make a move. The arrow flew right at Gilfaz, but he just stood there, not even fazed. He looked totally chill, like he couldn't care less about what was going on. He called himself pathetic under his breath. As the arrow came at him, he just snatched it out of the air like it was nothing. He grabbed it with his bare hand and just broke it right down the middle. He stood there with a smirk on his face, looking like he'd been waiting for them the whole time. His voice came out cold and kind of threatening, like he was ready for whatever they were about to do. The senior students just stopped in their tracks, barely able to move because they were so scared. None of them could figure out what was up with this dude. Somebody tried to whisper, but before anyone could do anything, Ilfaz made his move. He shot forward so fast the girl didn't even get to finish what she was saying. For a second he seemed small, but there was something about him that made the whole vibe tense. The beast in him was ready to go. With a wild grin, he jumped right in, not holding anything back. In seconds, everything went off. Gilfaz moved fast and didn't miss a beat, taking down the seniors one after another. They didn't even get a chance to react. That night, the whole mountain basically echoed with proof of just how strong he really was. A week rolled by, and now Leica and her crew were deep in the forest, going up against this wild tree frog that wasn't backing down. They moved together like they'd practiced 1,000 times, each one knowing exactly when to jump in. He kept moving fast, slipping past attacks, hitting back, and dropping creatures one by one. Leica pushed ahead, sounding super sure of herself. She told everyone to hold the line and let them know they were crushing it. The rest of the squad kept their eyes on Everett, sticking close behind him. Nobody even paused to think. They just did what needed to be done. Everything was wild, but everyone kept glancing at Lady Leica, kind of stunned by how strong she was. She was wiping out those frogs like it was just another day, and it honestly left people impressed. Leica tore through the next group of monsters like it was nothing, moving fast and not holding back at all. She kept a chill smile on her face, barely breaking a sweat, almost like this was just another regular day for her. He was already sitting at 2 stars. Tree frogs? Not even a challenge for him. Even though she kept it cool on the outside, she couldn't help but be proud of how far her team had come. From the beginning of the test until now, everyone on her squad had leveled up. She knew Instructor Freya would legit be hyped if she saw them now. All week, Selena and Raymond had been grinding and finally hit 1 star. They were hyped, showing off how far they'd come. Raymond couldn't help but think that Lady Leica really came through for them. Her advice pretty much carried the whole squad. Leica gave a small smile at what they said, but her attention shifted over to Lingus, standing a bit farther back. He still hadn't unlocked his star yet. He looked pretty silent, almost looking down. The others saw what was up and made sure he knew he wasn't alone. They let Lingus know he was leveling up just like everyone else. Nobody was leaving him in the dust. Even dropped a like for support. She nodded just a little, keeping her eyes on him. She noticed how focused he looked, like he was locked in even though he seemed chill on the outside. The team tried to back Linga up, letting him know he didn't have to hurry. He managed a quick, thankful smile, and you could tell he was starting to relax. Laika glanced his way, her voice softer now. He'd been handling those frogs like it was nothing, even without having a star. That was seriously impressive on its own. She stopped for a second, then pointed out that he'd already trained with Gilfaz before the test. His spear skills were locked in basically perfect. It was just a matter of time before his star showed up. As the squad agreed and the woods started getting darker, Laika put her hand up. She knew it was getting late, and hanging around any longer just wasn't smart. She signaled everyone to head back to base before things got risky. They decided it was smarter to stay on the move after dark, so everyone headed back through the silent trees. But when they reached their camp, the vibe was weird, like something wasn't right. Shadow was already there, just standing around waiting for them. He looked like an upperclassman. As soon as people saw him, everyone in the whole state started paying attention. He got ready to block, shifting into a spot where he could protect himself. Laika moved up, staying cool and confident. She wanted to know if the guy was really after their crystal orb. The man just gave a cocky grin, basically admitting he was there for the orb. He looked ready to pull something. Everyone in the group suddenly went quiet. None of them expected to go up against an upperclassman, and the whole vibe changed real quick. Laika locked in, narrowing her eyes as everything clicked for her. She knew right away they'd just run into one of the top guys, a senior challenger for sure. The way he carried himself, dude had to be at least a 2-star warrior, no question. Laika gripped her weapon tighter, ready for whatever was coming. She was basically letting him know he should bounce now, since facing the whole squad might be way out of his league. The guy just laughed it off, acting like he had everything under control. He said the other person had it all wrong, not even bothered. Right when Laika stepped up to face the older student, 3 more guys slid out from the shadows. They were all upperclassmen too, each rocking a 1-star rank, and they started closing in on Laika's crew from every direction. The senior looked at Laika with that annoying, smug grin, totally sure she didn't stand a chance. He basically acted like Laika was tough, but there was no way she could look out for her squad and still beat them all. Laika shot him a death stare, standing her ground without flinching. She was clearly locked in, no way she was backing down. Right away, the two just went at it. Laika's weapon caught the moonlight glinting as she stepped forward. She told her teammate to hang back. She had the 2-star enemy covered. While Laika threw herself into the fight, things got wild between the rest of the squad and the upperclassmen. The whole scene turned into a straight-up brawl. The seniors started moving in, trying to catch the police off guard by closing in from all sides. The other group tried to snatch their crystal ore, but Laika's team stood their ground. They weren't backing off no matter what. Lingus ended up right in front of one of the hardest 1-star guys out there. He held his spear tighter, not really sure what move to make next. His mind started to wander, pulling up an old memory out of nowhere. He remembered a chat he had with Gilfog. Back then, Lingus was kind of on edge when he asked Lord Gilfog something. If he ever ran into someone way stronger, Gilfaz didn't even hesitate. Arms crossed, he just smirked and basically said to give up. Lingus honestly froze. He didn't see that coming at all. Gilfaz just laughed after hearing that straight-up answer. He told G to just let it go, saying it's only normal. Trying to beat a 3-star or 4-star is just not happening. He started off a bit harsh, but then his voice got more chill. He said that if someone was up against an opponent close to their skill, like a 1-star, there was actually a shot at winning. He paid close attention while Gilfaz kept talking. The strongest. Monsters on this mountain aren't really a big deal. Most of them are just 2-star level, nothing wild. The older students hanging around here, yeah, they're about the same, nothing to stress about. Lingus didn't have the odds on his side, but he still had a shot. His eyes turned white while some weird chant played in the background. Gilfaz just nodded, totally serious. This was it. This strategy's pretty straightforward. Just gotta hang back and wait till the moment's right. Patience is key here. When your opponent drops their guard, that's your chance to make a move. That's how you get ahead. Just when things seemed tough, there was a chance to turn things around. But then, that memory started slipping away, and Lingus X just zoned out. Lingus let out a quick breath and snapped back to the fight. His opponent rushed him, but Lingus held his ground this time. He was locked in, just waiting for the right opening. That memory flashed in his mind. He remembered how nervous he'd been when he asked back then. Lord Gilfaz stood there, cool and confident, his hand just chilling on his sword. Lingus stared, trying to figure out how he was even supposed to catch this guy off guard. Gilfaz just gave a small laugh, like he'd seen this kind of thing 100 times before. He wasn't looking for an opening, he was just waiting things out, totally unfazed. Lingus couldn't believe it at first. Enduring was the only play when you're up against someone way stronger, and Gilfaz made that clear without even breaking a sweat. There was just no way to break out solo. All Lingus could do was hang on, even when the pain was next level and it honestly felt like it might be the end. If he gave up now, there'd be 0 shot at winning. He knew that much. Those words actually hit Lingus pretty hard. But Gilf, Alphaz kept his voice calm. He told them straight up that with the skills he's got right now, he should be able to hang in there. Lingus was up against a serious powerhouse, and honestly, he wasn't looking too confident. Gilfaz, though, just gave this chill, I got you kind of smile, like he already knew how things would play out. He wanted Lingus to trust himself and not get stuck overthinking. When the chance showed up, Lingus just needed to trust his gut and let his spear handle it. Lingus couldn't get those words out of his head while he stood across from his opponent. The guy was a tough one-star upperclassman, and every hit from him felt heavy, like getting smacked by a slab of meat. Lingus knew he wasn't as strong, but he had to push through anyway. Lingus braced himself, taking another hit that rattled his whole arm. Time felt like it was moving in slow motion. He stayed on defense, just managing to slip away from each attack. He didn't bother fighting back, just took every hit and kept standing. The more he held on, the more his opponent started to lose it. After a while, his rival just snapped, yelling out in pure rage. The upperclassman jumped up, ready to bring his sword down hard. Lingus had been waiting for this exact move. His eyes lit up, locked in, and ready to react. He locked in, then drove his spear up with everything he had. The tip went right through his opponent's defenses. He slipped past the guard and landed a solid hit, knocking the guy back. He hit the ground hard. The senior just stared, totally stunned, then dropped and blacked out. Lingus stood there, hands shaking, eyes fixed on him. He looked down at his hand. The spear he was holding started to shine, the center lighting up with a soft glow. Out of nowhere, a golden star symbol showed up next to him. That was it. Lingus just scored his first star. Leica was still going at it with her two-star rival, not backing down for a second. The sound of their swords clashing was loud enough to bounce through the whole forest, and every move she made with her blade showed she wasn't messing around. Gilfaz had shown her that move before, but she caught herself thinking he'd be disappointed. She was just too slow this time. She dodged that last attack, quick on her feet. Her sword caught the light for a second as she moved. Her opponent dropped to the floor, totally done. Leica let out a quick breath, finally letting herself relax. She rushed back to her squad, but by the time she got there, everyone was already gone. They pulled off the win. The whole team just started celebrating, totally wiped out, but hyped up at the same time. Lingus got caught in the middle of it all, everyone crowding around him. His teammates crowded around, hyped up and cheering for him. He was out of breath but couldn't hide how proud he was. He just kept thinking, he really pulled it off. Finally, everyone on the squad had won now. Star was sure she'd be ready to take on even stronger challengers next time, but right when they were about to call it a day, Leica glanced over at a far-off ridge, looking pretty curious. Her eyes drifted, and she started thinking about what Gilfaz might be up to right now. Everyone in the group already knew there was something hidden way out in the mountains. Gilfaz was. He took on a bunch of older guys by himself and completely wrecked them. Every time he swung his sword, it was loud, almost like thunder rolling through the room. The guys everyone thought were top tier just kept getting knocked back one after the other. They couldn't do anything against him. For him, this fight barely counted. It was basically just another day, nothing special. She gets hyped talking about it, saying the upperclassmen who barely made it out of Gilfaz now call him a straight-up monster. Gilfaz isn't your average student. He's the wild genius everyone talks about from the legendary Eldragon family. As everything goes dark, the screen just fades out.
Lately, I've had a strong addiction to watching manhwa and manga recap videos. Every single day, I find myself binging one after another, losing hours and days doing absolutely nothing productive. And honestly, it's getting out of hand. So, maybe we can make these viral videos too. I mean, look at the views, the growth, the community these creators are building. It looks simple, right? But that's a trap. You go down this endless rabbit hole, spending money, losing sleep, hiring editors and writers from Fiverr and Upwork, and still feel like you've been robbed. Because don't forget how emotional the YouTube algorithm can be with making videos go viral. It's unpredictable, especially when the market's saturated, competition's relentless, and somehow other creators are dropping 10-hour videos daily while you're stuck trying to finish one. That's when I realized something had to change. So, I built the solution, the Web2 Narrative Suite, a complete one-click system that handles everything from cropping, script narration, text-to-speech, image processing, and full video generation in one smooth process. Save money, reduce hours of work, and have a tool that only gives you straight results. Click on the link down below and experience it for yourself. And if you want even more tools to supercharge your YouTube recap journey, visit my Ko-Fi and Patreon pages where I drop weekly new tools designed to keep you ahead as AI continues to steal our jobs. So tap in now before you get left behind.